Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon. I welcome you on in as ever. Hey, it's combine time, folks. That's right. The season is upon us. What? Christmas? No. Thanksgiving? No, it's Thanksgiving. Who celebrates that? What? 4th of July? No. I'm talking about draft season, baby. It is upon us. It's time to ride. It's time to look far too deeply into athletic scores that have nothing to do with anything on a football field. It's time to analyze men in tights. It is that time, and it was a wondrous year for that. Many of us at that. It is indeed, as nerdy as we some get into this, like a second Christmas. We get excited by it because there is all that potential. One just turn of the screw. A couple of additions in the draft. One good class. You turn your team around from a bottom cellar dweller to the top of the board. It can be just like that. Is it easy? No, it isn't easy. Do you have to make a lot of right selections? You do. But we don't have to look any further than our own team as to a time when we were able, through just a draft class or two, to take a team that looked like it was scraped down to the bottom of the barrel, devoid of talent, nothing left, nothing remaining, and turn it right back up into a almost damn near perennial Super Bowl contender. So it can take just one day. It can just take one good draft. That's all it does take. That's why we do get excited about this stuff. That's why we do get as nerdy about this stuff as we do. And now that I've myself had about a good 6-7 weeks here into diving into some initial tape, we're going to look at some of these prospects. My initial big board, you'll see below me on my scroller, I've got what would be my de facto, I guess, player ranking, not based on any position, and which is just, it's the most generalized of ways of doing it. But you guys have requested this type of stuff, so I did put one together. I'm up to about, on the top 50 prospect list there, I'm up to about 50 or so on this, but I've obviously gotten well over 100 here on my big board, which I'll be unveiling in just a second. We do have to lead with some, I got to get some good sound effects for this. We've got to get some breaking news that we've got to talk about here on this stream, and that is that the Brain Trust has emerged from the darkness of the caverns of the cave to give us a little bit of insight into what is rattling around upstairs in their head. And it's more of good stuff. That's right. Along with some of the encouraging hires and fires of this offseason so far, we are now not only seeing good in the men that they're bringing aboard onto this ship, to right this ship, to unlilt the lilt, but on top of that, we're hearing an absolute chorus, a symphony from Carroll of items and things today, and not just from him, but the defensive coordinator, Clint Hurt, was the same way with this stuff, where it's checkbox after checkbox after checkbox after checkbox after checkbox of things we've asked for, specific, detailed, centric items that we've said, correct and fix that. Correct and fix that. Correct and fix that. Because that's been the maddening thing about this. You and I, we're to no probably degree any geniuses in any capacity when it comes to looking at the football field. We are all laymen to our certain degrees, varying degrees they may be. But it had become at such a undeniable, clear, in your face, right up here, right up here, as far as some of the things that have been plaguing this team and that they needed to correct and fix. Carroll talked in this press conference about a few of these things. Again, with him, he doesn't give you a lot in press conferences. A lot of it is at the same time a little bit in the what I would fashion as saying, but the broad strokes category of things. But on the big changes to the defensive staff, Carroll said they had been itching for a time to make some schematic adjustments, which is an interesting statement and stuff for us we will certainly be unpacking here within the chat. He said they'll get to some places I've been really hoping to get to. Again, he said we're going to be hoping to get to some places I've been really hoping to get to. Again, this is going to be top-notch vagary stuff here. We are not getting specifics, but again, within this, you can read a little bit into this. Okay, we're going away from the old, maybe going into the new. He said, we've been making our moves subtly, but now we can make it more significantly. Well, indeed, we did get to see a little bit of at times of the unveiling of this the split safety look, the cover 2 shell high look that they're going to employ more often. They would still slide back into single high and cover 2 stuff, so they weren't really embracing it last season, but they were sprinkling it in. Like the guy that wants just one single shake of pepper on the top of his food and nothing more, you know? How much pepper, sir? Click, 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 enough. But sir, that was only a couple of grains of pepper. I don't care. That's kind of like what it is here. Now they're going to fully get that in and say, I want my pepper. Okay, sir. More, sir? More. That's what we're going to get now. We're going to get more pepper on our spaghetti. Okay? And it's going to be good pepper at that. It's not going to be I'm talking the good ground stuff. So, I'm encouraged to hear him say that he's been itching to do it. I don't know what's been taking them so long. He's the guy in charge. He says that like there's somebody else he's been waiting on to give him the go-ahead. I've been itching. You're the one who itches. You're the one with the gigantic back scratcher in your office. What do you mean you've been itching? I don't get that a little bit, but we're not going to dwell on that part. We're going to dwell on the positive because it's the things we've wanted to hear right down the beat. It's like he's tracing over the lines of the things that we've talked about prior. And that's nothing but to get excited about, to enjoy seeing. He says the new defense will accentuate edge rushers, which is an interesting thing because I think what he's talking about there in edge rushers, a little bit of nomenclature there, is he's not necessarily talking about defensive ends within this now. Edge rushers could be stand-up outside linebackers because if we're talking about edge rushers and it being a down defensive end in this defense and they're going to employ more Vic Fangio stuff, that defensive end plays that 4-eye technique a lot of times, which is the inside shoulder of the offensive lineman, which can help for better clogging up running lanes and freeing up the outside linebackers, but doesn't as much let those guys flourish theoretically, who are those defensive ends, down linemen in that particular defense. So it'll be interesting to see if what he means by that. I would tend to think maybe he means more of the standing up outside linebacker types. Standing ahead of everything kind of he said here as we got into more and more, a little bit more detail from him. Again, he had a nice long press conference, but there wasn't a lot of meat on this bone. He said looks, and he said Sean Desai is going to bring a kind of a what we've all talked about, just being a really smart guy. He says he'll bring looks and disguises to make it as intricate and difficult as we can on quarterbacks. And you start to go, ooh, is this a little bit of potentially Carroll acknowledging that they have not been intricate in their disguises? Something that we've spoken about is could it be that? And then on the very next thing he says we've been a little arrogant over the years because we've just been able to play and we want to play. Ooh, we've maybe been a little arrogant over the years because we've just been able to play what we want to play. It's not that time now. It's time to keep moving, to keep growing. And I know I'm leaning on these words, but it's for good reason. Because I've hammered on this over and over on my channel throughout about what Carroll needs to do, where he needs to go. And these are acknowledgments of that. And it's not to sit here and stand up and say I'm right. It's to say this is why I'm excited. I'm not going to get easily excited or, as you guys know, wave palm palms over things that are stupid decisions, that are dumb decisions. But as I've said with Carroll, it's a matter of he hasn't shown for 5, 6, 7 years here, even throughout his tenure, he's going to change certain things. Hard to see him changing now, but I will give him credit here. He indeed at least seems to be showing more of the signs of change. It began last year with Waldron and begrudgingly beginning to take that scheme along. It continues now this offseason with the firing of Norton and bringing in a defense that's going to be more diversified. Moving on from Solari, which I'm sure was hard for him to do, understanding how good a line coach Solari is. And make no mistake about it, Solari is a really fine offensive line coach. But it's more about the future. It's more about where things are going, not where things have been. And Dickerson is the way of the future with that. He talked about with Dickerson in being more scheme-centric. And then the interesting part when he was also talking about Dickerson and the elevation of him, is he said, the best part of what we did in the run game last year came from them, i.e. Waldron, Dickerson. Very interesting. Very interesting. So the press conference from my angle of things was nothing but top-notch, top-shelf awesomeness. I hope that these are not all going to be just words from Clint Hurt, that it's not all just going to be placating the fan base that's asking for this type of talk from Carroll, that indeed, when we get to the mini camps and training camp and all that we indeed see these changes being employed. And the fact that they brought in an outside guy like Sean Desai would lead me to believe we have a pathway for its employment, rather than if you just kept all the same coaching staff, said, no, we're going to do this differently, but yet you didn't bring anybody in who could really execute it. So you're sort of setting it up to fail then at that point if you didn't do that. But they did. It's not been home runs so far out the gate with this offseason. There's not been a chance to. You haven't gotten to free agency yet. You haven't gotten to the draft yet. But this has been solid, working the count, getting guys on base, not getting any outs. So I like what we're hearing. I like what we're seeing. These are good, encouraging moves. Hope we see more of the same. Of course, we heard more from, I'm sure many of you are going to ask about the Russell Wilson situation, and we heard what we heard about the Russell Wilson situation, which is that we have no intention. There's always this weird thing with it, by the way, folks, with this, which they've got to do, I get. And at least Schneider, to his credit, acknowledged the fact that he's got to take calls. He can't just do the dramatic things some fans want to see, right? Some fans want to see Schneider on the end of the call. He's in his office. He gets the call from the New York Giants, and they say, what's it going to take for you to send Russell Wilson over here? And he does some dramatic, curses him out and then slams the phone down on the receiver so hard it bursts into a million pieces. Like that's what people kind of, I think, somewhat want to see with him do. But he's got to do his due diligence as a general manager and listen to what they're saying. You never know when somebody's going to go to crazy town. You never do. You never know, especially in this day and age. So he's got to take calls, but they both said essentially, hey, he's here, the intention's here. But again, Wilson says the same thing. My intention is the plan right now is, of this moment right now, if you talk to me right now, but not in 10 seconds from right now, but right now in this moment, this is the intention. So it is encouraging to hear they're not like, he's on the open market, come get him, baby, woo! And we're not hearing any rumors coming out of Combine so far early on. This is where a lot of talks and backdoor stuff gets done, of course. You're not hearing anything so far about Wilson being available, and they're going to say one thing, but what's really being heard in the background's another, and Wilson's telling us he wants to be out. You're not hearing any of that. And as I said before, silence in that edge of things is nothing but good from our standpoint, because if this is going to happen, it's got to happen in the next basically month here, or to a couple weeks here before we get into the free agency, or indefinitely before we get to, if not free agency, then definitely before the draft. And so the longer that we can get no time, nothing going on, more of them just saying this, our intentions do this, we're going to do with this, we're going to sit with this. Great. All right, let's get to my big board here. I know many of you are waiting on that here with it. But again, be encouraged by what you're hearing so far from the front office. They're showing a willingness to change, not stuck in their ways, not being immovable, not just going with a slight angle to the left. Now, again, they've got to show us in action beyond words. But at least with words, we're getting that, and we didn't necessarily get that in the past. I think sometimes we've gotten a sense of defiantness in the face of being questioned. How dare you? How dare you? We've been pretty successful here with how we've run it. How dare you? And it wasn't said with those words, but said with that sort of, let's call it inflection and tone. I hope we get going forward on it, though. Let's just say I hope we do get it going forward. All right, first up I'm going to show you guys here is going to be the list that will be my defensive big board. And again, you guys will notice this is not filled with every prospect, because I've got to acknowledge I haven't looked at every prospect. Every one of these guys I've looked at, most of these guys I've looked at multiple games of film on. So I try to get a deep dive, which means it takes me a little more time to fill out, my big board, so to speak. But take your screenshot. Take your screenshot now. It's going down fast. This is a fluid board. So this is a board that's going to continue to move along as I continue to go back and watch tape on these guys. Just because I've taken a look at Alontae Taylor and watched a couple of games in him and liked what I saw in the third round, doesn't mean if I don't get some more time, I'm not going to come back and check these guys out if we get them before draft. And the hope is, getting a little ahead of it as I am this year, I'll be able to do that a little bit more and get a little more accurate in the assessment and where, I sit with them and whatnot. As well, I'm going to be doing, I believe, a video here for the channel where I'll be doing a look back 2 years ago at the first round, because every guy that was picked, I did a breakdown where I saw them, just to see how accurate I am. See if I'm know what I'm talking about in this respect, right? Because we can go 2 years back on a draft now, and I can get a pretty good read on a guy that I say if they've been crap or great, and if I've been accurate or not in that respect. I have delineated here between, of course, Sam linebacker, Will linebacker, middle linebacker. I try to kind of separate those as much as I could. There's a little bit of extrapolation here on some guys being moved to certain places to agree. You'll see that on the offensive side of this in a second. We can talk about this board. I've said that I see the tier 1 sitting with about 12, 13, 14 players. If you look at on my board here at the defensive side, I've got emboldened. I've got emboldened. I've got bolded up the what I would consider that top 12, 13, 14 tier board here. So Devontae Wyatt, Hutchinson, Thibodeau, obviously, Jobo, Karlaftis is on there for me as one of those top tier guys. Kyle Hamilton, Stingley, Ahmad Gardner. That's it for defense. That's your tier 1. So though I have these other guys below that you'll notice that are in the round 1 phase of things, and I'm continuing to add to this board, by the way, but you'll notice those guys those are first round players, but they're not necessarily top tier players. From there, you're going to see second round gets fairly deep. Third round's fairly deeper defense. Fourth round's pretty deep in there. This is, again, I've got a lot more guys to add in here. You're going to see probably double this size by the time we get to draft day. But this is where I see the guys ranking. So when I got Boy Mafe over Zachary Carter, I like Boy Mafe just a little bit over Zachary Carter, but I see him as a second round pick. Same thing with Winfrey. Winfrey's up over Hall for a reason. I like him better. Hall to me is a back-end second-round player. Winfrey's a upper-end second-round player. So we can discuss this board. I can keep it up. I'll flash it up a bunch, I'm sure, here through the show here, and I'll always have this kind of up so we can talk about this throughout the time leading up to the draft. But this is just where I kind of see these guys. I've got my reasons for where I put them. I'm not, some of the read, you look at this where some of the stuff is in general with other boards in certain degrees, but I really try on my own to try to go where I see them and tilt away from what other people have in their boards and just stick to what my assessment is. Right or wrong, allow it to just see where it goes, so to speak. Now on the offensive side of the ball, oh, that was not the right one. That wasn't right. All right, so the offensive side of the ball here, I've got these separated quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, and right tackle. There is a difference between left guard and right guards. You can't just stack these guys all together and think that they're all the same thing. They are not. Darian Kinnard, for instance, who I see having to move out of right tackle because he doesn't have the ability to move out in space like you need for a guy to tackle. I don't know that he'd be a great guy in pass protection either over on the left side as a left guard. I think he's truly just going to be probably a right guard up at the next level. That's where he fits to me. In the top tier, that tier 1 group that I was talking about, I do still keep Jamison Williams there. I don't care about the ACL. I think he's got just the speed, the size combination. I think you got to keep him in that mark of things. Garrett Wilson's my number 2. I have elevated Treylon Burks up over Drake London for me. I think Burks can do more things than London can. London's a big play receiver. I think he's going to be potentially more sliding into that possession-y, like a great possession guy at the next level. I don't know if he's going to be as much the big play guy at the NFL level. We'll see what he runs here at the Combine. He's going to be a guy that's going to make a lot of money or lose a lot of money here, especially when he's running his 40. You see the left tackle class. I've got a couple. I've got, 1, 2, 3, 4 going in the first round. I'm not quite as high on Penning as some, though I do still see him as a high second rounder. Just don't quite see him as a first rounder myself. I think some of his tape gets to benefit from playing from a small bully and sort of balling a little bit of the players around them. And for me, this is a little bit of a lesson learned last year with this guard out of Grambling who was doing similar things on his tape, but certainly wasn't able to make much of even a splash at the NFL level once he got to it. Again, the list is pretty self-explanatory here. No great super risers or droppers here. You see there is a lot of running back depth here, and I still have about easily 7 or 8 names of guys that could be in contention from 3rd to 5th round status of things. So this list is only going to increase. What this does tell you to me is that you should not be picking a running back, definitely not in the 1st round, and you should probably not be picking it even in the 2nd round with Breece Hall there as my one guy. You should be waiting. From where I stand on this, I just think that that's where there is good depth. These guys, just because these guys are down in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, make no mistake about it. It's not because they're bad guys. All of them have something to them that's exciting. I was watching the Zach Charbonnet guy from UCLA last night. I mean, kid's got size and he runs with power and he can make a great cut in the open field. And it's not that they don't have something to them. So just because they're a little bit lower on the list shouldn't be a death knell for them as far as considered where their prospect status. It's just a little bit, again, about the value of other positions. And then the fact that, admittedly speaking, there's not those guys that are, your Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor types, that are just like built off a mold coming up off heaven with just built to be a running back, running back. These guys are just, some of them are just, he's 5'7". Oh, well, he's 5'9", 210. Just a little bit of that going on. So let's discuss this. Let's discuss some of my boards. I can bring this up or down as you guys want in the chat. Either way, let me get this off here in a second. But I do appreciate you guys watching. If you like what you're hearing, of course, please do hit that like button for me. I do really appreciate it. Channel growth has, again, continued to We're just pushing on up. I see more and more subscribers all the time, so I appreciate you guys doing that. If you have subscribed, tell somebody about the channel. Get them to subscribe too. Let's keep this thing growing. I'd love to start getting some nice, good forward momentum here as we get on into next season. Even maybe potentially push into 10,000 here before next year. If we can go hard, we go hard with it, if it's possible. But I do appreciate you watching no matter what. Hope you guys are having a great midpoint of your week. And let's get over into the chat and see what's going on. Maxwell Stern, hey guys, what's up, Maxwell? Kyle, I don't believe Russ wants to stay in Seattle until he says it himself. Russ tells the media he's staying and loves Seattle. Media, he's lying and he definitely wants out. Yeah, I think that there's definitely, this is one of those financial impotence things, right, Kyle, where there's definitely a financial carrot that is dangling in front of the media folks to keep this story going, keep the embers hot, keep putting more wood on top of the fire. Whether they've got real wood to throw in or not, maybe they're just ripping down wallpaper and throwing it on top, doesn't matter, right? They're going to keep the fires lit here because it gets them clicks, and that's how they make money, and this is your modern media for you in a lot of respects. So I don't think you can fault them for being what they are. It is what it is with that a little bit. I think that's why we all have to stay as Seahawks fans in the pocket of not getting swayed by rumors we hear unless we have something with something tangible behind it. I mean, one of the reasons I freaked out last year when Russell Wilson's agent leaked a list of 4 teams that he was willing to be traded to was that this was not Wilson's agent reportedly leaked. This was Wilson's agent leaked. This was not something being drummed up out of the darkness, out of the nothingness. This was something tangible and something that was concerning. So nothing like that's gone along so far here. They are all saying what we would hope that they would say here, which is there ain't going to be a deal. He's going to remain here. I will say this with all this though, Kyle, and this is what does not allow for the door to completely shut, but be creaked ever so nearly closed. Okay. It's like when you're a kid poking through the door and it's like, it's like that right now. And that is that if there was a plan in place to explore these options with Russell Wilson, he probably wouldn't be traded right now. There's a potential he could be. I mean, you can make an argument a little bit that, well, now you got to re-sign your own free agents in the next couple of weeks. If a deal is going to be done, it's got to be done now. But really, to me, more of the pushing timetable here is free agency, and the draft is the final point. Free agency to me would be like, if it ain't happening by free agency, to me, it's not happening. By the draft, I would be shocked if it lasted there, but technically it still could come down the pike. If it was a possibility of happening, what would we expect these camps to be saying right now? Carroll and Schneider to throw open the doors to the barn and say, everybody who wants some of this cow, it's time for the slaughter. That wouldn't really help them out as far as their trade negotiation power, would it? If Russell Wilson was to say, I want to be out of town, get me out of town, trade me, Seattle's got 2 years of club control over him. They can drop that hammer, those iron gates of a castle upon him in his face instantaneously if they wanted to. And there isn't anything he can do about it. He can be as chummy as he wants with the commissioner. He can't force a trade. He can't force Seattle's hand. So if that's the case, would we expect him to be going like a live wire across the board talking about get me out of here? No. So while I do still say silence is good, and while I do remain hopeful that Russell Wilson isn't going anywhere, I still have to acknowledge the fact that the possibility still does exist. We are still in DEFCON 4 until we can get to those markers I was talking about. Maxwell, yesterday I met Nate Burleson. I was talking to him. He did say Wilson was going to stay. Very cool, super nice. Oh, that's awesome, Maxwell. Hell yeah, that'd be cool. Jackson really liked Coach Carroll's comments. Sounds like he knows we need to change like that. It does. Yeah, I agree. It sounds like it's great. Everything, all the things we could hope he would say, he said. Maxwell says, any Creed Humphrey of this draft, your dream pick being realistic? It's a good question. That's why I'm giving it some silent consideration here. I mean, Linderbaum is the boring, quick answer because, and shout out to Randall McDaniel for doing the research on this. Centers slide, centers fall. There are years where a guy like Ryan Nelson will be picked in the mid-teens, or Cesar Ruiz by the Saints was picked in the 20s of the first round in recent years. You know, there are those years that existed that happens, where there's a clean first round center. He's going to get taken some point in that first round, no two ways about it. But there are oftentimes guys could fall, and indeed with a guy like Creed Humphrey, who posted an all-time type year by PFF, basically a first-team All-Pro right out the gate, right out the box, and he fell all the way deep into the second round. I think that tells you there's a possibility Linderbaum could have something potentially have the same. I don't think it'll happen because my given instinct on this is that maybe the rest of the draft at that top end, those tier one guys, isn't as deep as even by 4 or 5 guys as it normally would be to maybe push that along. But with that said, it's not impossible, especially if these quarterbacks start to get plucked for reasons that go outside of the quarterbacks deserving to be first-round picks. You know, teams wanting to get a couple of these quarterbacks, be it maybe it's Howell, Ritter, Pickett in that group. Willis is going to go in the first round. But of those 3 other guys, maybe it's let's get that fifth-year club control that we get with them being a first-round pick. And that starts to push guys down the board. So Linderbaum, to me, is the guy that would stand out to me. Let me give you a name that's not boring, though. I think Zion Johnson, if Zion Johnson fell into be that second round phase, there's some people that are down on him, but that would push Lewis over to right guard, and you'd be really good in the guards at that point. That wouldn't be bad either. And there are a couple of receivers. There's no chance we go receivers, but there are a couple of second-round receivers I really like. That would be dream picks. I'll try to get my most dream guy. That would be the that sounded horrible. The most dream pick guy that you could pick there. I think it would be Linderbaum at the end of the day because he's so clean as a prospect. I just know what he's going to bring. He's a zone blocking center. He can move in space. He's pure scheme fit. How do you not? How do you not bite on that? You know. Jackson says, looks like Linderbaum's going to go in the top 15 according to Mel Kiper, so that dream might be dead. Yeah, that one might be dead. That's why I wanted to go to a different one too. Zion Johnson might be off the board too. But Abraham Lucas, Daniel Faalele, both of those two guys would be very interesting if they were sitting there when we pick, as far as we're talking about dream scenario. Guy could be fun if, I don't know, if everybody thinks Jordan Davis is going to go in the first round. But I don't know as much with him. I mean, not a lot of pass rush in college. Rotational snaps. He might be another guy that falls in that Seattle likes quite a bit in there. Especially a guy that could play both, probably some 4-3-3-4 if you needed. If you're talking about a dream scenario guy, he's a monster who could be just starting to scratch the surface on who he is. And at the end of the day, I want to find a player who's just scratching the surface on what they are, not already have pulled off the top of their wrapper, you know, and they're half eaten. You know what I mean? Jackson, why is Treylon Burks getting so much hype? Don't get me wrong, he could easily be good, but he's not the best receiver in this class. I don't think he's the best receiver in this class. I think Jamison Williams is the best receiver in this class. And then I have Garrett Wilson above Treylon Burks. So to me, I think Drake London and Treylon Burks fight it out for that third spot, but they're duking it out. He carries a lot of weight for a receiver really easily. He's very physical, and he's physical with that extra weight. He can still move like a smaller receiver with that weight. He can high point a ball as good as nearly any receiver in this draft, maybe outside of Drake London. And maybe a couple of the tight ends that are really good in this draft about doing some of that stuff. He is also really good in yak. So he'll catch the ball in space and he'll make some moves and get upfield and actually get you some yards. You know, I don't know that Drake London's going to do a lot of yakking. You know, only yakking he's going to be doing is after he does some partying on the pros. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that there's a little bit more on his game with that. But like I said with it, I think Jamison Williams gives you star power if he can get back from the ACL. And then I think with Wilson, I just like Wilson's game overall. I think he's a guy with a high floor. I think he has number one potential to him, underrated with his yak and great hands, acrobat. So, you know, those are my first two guys, but I do like Burks. I gotta say I like him. I wouldn't put him as number one in this draft as a receiver though. I can't see that. Jackson, no Sam Howell in the top 50. Come on, Brandon. Why are you hurting me, bro? I thought we were friends. Laughing out loud. I'm trying, Jackson. And PFF was talking about him the other night. I was listening to them in the background, and they were making some sense to the aspect of Sam Howell losing basically 4 skill position players last year, and then like a new coaching staff being implemented this year, and you know, the coach having him doing a lot of like Tim Tebow-like stuff in that offense when he wasn't a Tim Tebow kind of guy. I can totally understand liking Sam Howell. So it's not crazy to me that somebody else likes him that much or that even thinks he's the best quarterback in this draft from their perspective of things. I don't think it's a crazy perspective. Not in the least. And again, I will be continuing to go back and look at some tape on these guys. I just can't quite get sold in on him. And I think he's got the very tiniest little bit of a hitch in his throw. And his motion's not elongated, but there's something about this, like I said, it's this thing I call it, it's like his engage the mechanism thing that he does. And when he does it on his deep balls, it's like it has to be engaged just right for him to get his deep balls off pure and good. And if not, it sits up there and it's like a cloud's holding his football up in the air. And there's something about it that just throws me off a little bit. But maybe I just need to wrap my mind around it a little bit better. Daniel W., they won't show their hand before free agency draft. Yeah, we really want to replace Ethan Posick with this center in the draft or this center via free agency. Per example, grain of salt on presser. Exactly, Daniel. That's why I'm trying not to stay much to what they're saying about, because people are going to ask definitely Daniel Lunn, they want to re-sign their own guys. They're talking about bringing their own guys. I'm not going to, that's why I didn't mention too much with that, more into the schematic stuff, because you go, I don't know what we can really take from that. I don't know if there's a lot to really be drawn from we're trying to sign. Sure they are, and I just watched before I went live here, DJ Reed just did the double eye emoji on his Twitter. When that happens, when they go double eye emoji, so, that's when it's getting real. But we will be hearing soon with those guys, if there is going to be a deal in place, something coming down the board, which hopefully there will be. Hopefully we get maybe a couple of these guys brought back in. That's just a little bit less work that you have to do in free agency and the draft. And we've got a whole hell of a lot of work that we've got to do in the free agency and draft. A couple donations on the board. Thank you very much. Let me get up. I think I missed one up here. Oh, wait, hold on. So first we got Megan Gock. Rogers celebrating 3 months as a Hawks Nest Pro Bowler and channel membership. I appreciate you for that, Megan. She says, greetings, 12s. Interesting pressers, methinks. Very interesting, Megan. Very encouraging pressers. I think where we're standing right now. Very encouraging press conferences. Megan with another $5 donation on top of that, celebrating 3 months as a member. Thank you, Megan. Says, recovering from the migraine from hell, but seeing Coach's gorgeous face helped this morning. Be laughing out loud. Well, whatever. If it relieves the headache, Megan, then so be it with that. It was relieving my headache too with Coach Carroll. I was relieving my own personal Carroll headache. Just hearing him say things that were like a warm towel on the top of my forehead. Like a warm, wet towel on the top of my forehead. That's what it was like for me on that. Thank you for the donation, though. Randall coming in with a $5 donation. Thank you, Randall. Appreciate you. You're awesome. Awesome, brother. He says, you got me on that video you posted. There's a dono over there, too. Have you scouted Darian Kennard, tackle from Kentucky? I had to do the homie don't play that video for Chad Brown. It was just too good. It went together too good. You know what I mean, Randall? I have scouted Darian. Let me bring up my notes on him. And I did like what I saw in him, Randall, but he's got the old fatal flaw. If we're talking about where we're putting this guy, where he's going to go, what top side, all that other stuff. I'm just getting my cards here. Go to. No. Where do I got him at here? Oh. There we go. So Randall, this is what I was thinking. I just want to make sure I'm writing my notes here. He's a right tackle, obviously, is what he's been playing, but really slow, lumbering feet, traditional right tackle in that respect, but even a little bit more so. The twitchy edge rushers I watched on tape with him gave him some issues around the bend. He's a natural at double teaming linemen, would be a double teaming. He's a great scheme fit guy in that respect. But I do think that the speed off the snap is a little slow, and then there's slow feet on top of the two things. And if he's going against a power tackle, and that's why right tackles will tend to be slow and lumbering, is that you do tend to get the power defensive end that you're going up against at that point. So you can be a little more accommodated to be able to match up against that guy. But with that said, it's a little bit beyond that with him from where I saw. He does play with a nasty disposition. He looks to punish defenders. I liked his finish. Another reason, though, why I can see him doing okay inside at guard. When he's run blocking, I thought, Randall, he looked a lot like Morgan Moses when he run blocks. That's really the upper level part of his game. I thought that stood out. That even at right tackle, he was able to do that. Whether you got a twitchy guy or a power guy, he was going to take that guy up for a ride. What always says, he just throws guys around on the football field. Again, just a bully type guy. This is the type of, you want to put your offensive line with 5 of these type of guys that have this kind of mentality at least. My bottom line is I love him as a run blocker from an attitude to power to execution. He scares me in pass pro, especially a right tackle, not just a mauler. Also has a good understanding of positional blocking. His quickness and speed give him issues, and he's aware it's a problem. As you can see him panic a little against those type of players. And again, I've got him sitting in there. You can see on my big board, I've got him here in the third round, Randall. So while I don't think he's going to hold up as a tackle, I actually think that he's going to be a really good right guard, where that's just more of a fit. And I don't see him from a size standpoint being, unable to get the leverage to work at that position. Those guys are increasingly getting to be 6'4" guys. So it's not a death knell to be at that size anymore and go inside. Washington Fist Quest with the $2 donation. Thank you, Washington Fist Quest. Any good long snappers in this draft, Brandon? Why would we go into the new ones? We got a money one right now. You're trying to save some money, aren't you? You're being smart with it. You're being smart with the Washington Fist Quest. You're trying to save that $750,000 on the cap. Hey, every little bit counts, man. Every little bit counts. I would think that there's always some you can find, and I would think you wouldn't have to pay premium prices. Seems like long snapping has gotten better over the years to my eyes. I could be off on that, but that's how it generally feels. Jackson Zor says, which lineman do you like the most? I saw Mel Kiper think the NC State kid will go number 1, but I really like Evan Neal. I get kind of torn between the top 3 tackles. I think there's a reason you hear their names all being fluttered as the number 1 off the board, is that they all are really good tackles, deserving of being top 12 picks, let's say. And there's not a lot to necessarily pick apart in their games. Akawanu, who might be now, is, I think, favored to be the number 1 guy, the NC State kid you're talking about. He definitely has got some issues potentially in pass protection, but he's just so nasty in run blocking that people think that's going to be enough. Some people think he might be slid into guard long term. I mean, I think he'd play tackle, at the very least right tackle. But the lineman I like the most, I think I lean back to Neal, because I do have I lean to Neal, but I also like Cross. So, I mean, Ikawanu's to me is number 3 on my board. And I do have there's been times in watching tape that I liked Cross almost a little bit more. Sorry, we're getting some beeping and deep in here. There's sometimes I like Cross a little bit more, but I probably am with you. I probably at the end of the day lean towards Neal. But I will say this with this. If we're looking at these tackles from last year's perspective, I liked both Rashawn Slater and Penny Sewell more than I liked these 3 guys. So I like them, but I did like the last year's 2 priors better. Jay Stern says, not liking Malik Willis, huh? It's, second round isn't bad. Second round isn't bad. And a team could come in and draft him and fit an offense around him and get a lot out of his first round, contract. And maybe the guy goes up. I think his top end is like a Steve McNair kind of guy, or trying to think of yeah, I think he's kind of in that mold of things where he can run a little bit like that, but he's not the uber big running guy, but he's also not the frail, thin guy. He's got a little bit of a build to him to where he can sustain some stuff. He's got a live arm. I think his mechanics are a little bit all over the place. I think some of the reads he made were really simple. I don't know if he's going to be able to process on a football field. If I'm making a guy a first-round quarterback, I've got to have a little bit less question marks. I don't need all the question marks answered, but you can't have like a bag full of question marks. Then at that point, even if you've got natural talent and some plus sides to your game, I'm going to probably slide you down. Because if I'm going to make a first-round pick of a quarterback, that's not just a lot of investment in draft capital. That also means I'm marrying myself to this guy usually for the next 3 years. And as our own franchise has learned with the likes of Kelly Stoffer, Dan McGuire, Rick Meyer, you don't want to just grab a guy because you're in a year of need and a guy's there who's near the value of where you should pick, and so you do. You know, you want to be operating from a little bit different, decision-making quotient. Ethan, I'm honestly shocked Carroll said the words, we've been arrogant in our approach. I never thought I'd hear those words. I'm shocked to hear it as well. It took me by surprise to hear him be as frank as he was being. I think that there's been a lot of good people in the background, Seahawks fans, potentially former players, people that are out in front like myself espousing all this stuff that are doing that dirty work in the background to be in Coach Carroll's ear to say, this is what the score is on the scoreboard, Carroll. Coach, you can not like it, you can hate it, but this is what it is. And you clutching to the old and ignoring this reality is not doing you any favors. It ain't helping the situation, and it certainly ain't changing it. And it does indeed seem like somebody has gotten through to him in that respect from somewhere, and God bless you for doing so, whoever did it. Or maybe he just realized, maybe he just realized. Jackson Shore, it's a pipe dream, but imagine Jordan Davis on our team. He would fit perfect, but he'd be long gone by then. I don't know, Jackson. There's a little bit that goes into this thought process with Jordan. As I said, he's freakish. He's going to, measurements are going to be off the board here. He's, you look at the tape and he definitely stands out at times. But again, rotational guy, number one. Number two, not a lot of, there's no technician to his game. He's not a guy to use his hands or be amazing in his get off. There's definitely the one trick pony item. It's a good one trick, but it is a one trick. And you look at a guy that would be like a comp for him theoretically being a Derek Brown that was taken top 10 by the Carolina Panthers 2 years ago. Similarly kind of built player, a little smaller maybe, but a little more refined in his pass rush game coming out of Auburn. And Derek's not really topped into it there with Carolina. He's been okay, but he's not been a top 10 first-round defensive tackle. And it'll be interesting to see if this doesn't maybe push Jordan's value down the board just a little bit, where you go, do I want to take a first-round pick on a run-stuffing defensive tackle that I'm going to rotate in? And from my mind, most teams are going to look at that decision and they're going to go the other way. Ethan says, Jackson, dude, tell me about it. I'm so freaking mad about this S, like really freaking mad. Oh, Jackson. Oh, it's by, you're talking to Ethan. Sorry. Jackson, Pete was super optimistic about Chris Carson playing next year. I don't see it. Hope I'm wrong, but neck injuries are scary. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't understand either. I mean, if they know that it's a chronic neck injury and it cost him this year, why is it going to get better after an off season? Let's ask that. I know that's not a question anybody wants to ask, but I mean, isn't that the question we need to be asking right now? You guys knew he had a chronic neck injury before you signed him to a contract, right, Coach Carroll? Yes. Okay. His chronic neck injury closes down his season this past year after you signed to that contract. Is that correct, Coach Carroll? Yes. And now you're going to keep him through another offseason and be on the books for his cap number next year, even though knowing that the neck is still a ticking time bomb. Yes. Okay. Okay. Jackson, is the injury the only reason you have Jamison Williams that low on your list? Yes. That is the only reason. Complete receiver, everything you want in a receiver. He's at that size where he's not too big, where he can't make every cut and run every route twitchily. And he's fast and he's quick. So yeah, I think that you do have to drop him down just a little bit. I mean, you do. I mean, I'm doing the similar thing to a degree with George Pickens, in my opinion. You go look at George Pickens' tape before he was injured, and he's a first-round pick to me. But I am going to knock you down probably about half a round to a round down a chart if I look at it and I see that it's not, there's some question marks there with it. I got to do that. Now, I know some of you will say, well, is George Pickens that less back from where Jameson is? Yeah, I think Jameson's got a little bit more of the jet pack in his back, and has got a little bit more of that first 10, 12, 13 yards of space he eats up just a little bit faster, and I think he's a little more refined as a route runner. GoOx05 says, I don't like that John said we will not use void years. You or I either. You or I either. It's disconcerting to my ears to hear. And I hope that they potentially reconsider that notion of things. It could be too, though, they end up doing it. Some of the stuff is, again, you're not going to show your hand and tell your hand, right? You're in the process of negotiating potentially with Quandary Diggs, DJ Reed, Rashad Penny, and you're going to say, we're going to throw void years around like it's Christmas, we're going to be the Oprah of void years, you get a void year and you get a void year, every agent will come knocking on your door wanting a void year. So you probably would say, yeah, we just did that as a 1 year off thing because whatever, but then you could employ it later on. Megan Gawk Roger says, greeting 12s. Interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, Megan, I already read that. Patriot Sports Cards. Sorry, I'm here. Pete Carroll said that they were a little arrogant with their approach to the draft. You know with me, Patriot, what it had me doing? Nodding. Yeah. So I've been talking about it for a year and a half, and I took many a slings and arrows for having just that opinion of things over the last year and a half. Most of the people in this chat have been on board with me. Most of you guys are smart with it and understood what you were seeing too. And it's not a matter of it took like a keen eye to notice this stuff. We all were seeing it for the most part. But you had your share of people that pop in the chat. How dare you question John? How dare Carroll would never, he's doing what he can. No. He's not doing everything he can. He's doing the opposite of everything he can. He's staying in the same lane he's always been. That was my whole point for a long period of time here. And I was speaking it because I wanted to see change from it. That's why, not because I want to bitch and moan about stuff, but because you want to see change. Because if you continue in that same lane, we're going to end up off-road, in a ditch, down a gutter, through a ravine, car twisting and turning over and over again. And we were just trying to avoid that. We just kind of wanted to have a nice Sunday afternoon drive. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it doesn't hit me by surprise in the least any more than Clint Hurtt's press conference did. I'm encouraged. I nod my head. I smile. Like, hey, whatever it took to get to this change point, we got here. Thank God. Jackson, it's funny during the season, I sometimes hated seeing Pete on the sideline. Now in the offseason, I low-key miss and can't wait for the season to start. Well, I agree with Carroll. I am hyped and ready for the season to already begin. I am jacked. Like Carroll said, I'm jacked. Jackson Shore, the Russ to Pittsburgh trade by Ryan Clark is trying to push is just cringe. Stop. They have nothing I want. And didn't Clark say 2 weeks ago he bashed Russ? Now he loves him, laughing out loud. What the F? Yeah. I agree, Jackson. The trade stuff you hear is just silly stuff too. As far as the value people are coming up with, and the trade is just, but again, yeah, they're going to do this type of stuff. And Ryan's weird because Ryan at one point got his butt beat on the football field. And he popped off. Well, he didn't pop off. He just said in the press conference after the game, we got beat by the best player on the field, referring to Russ that night because that was the night that Russ went like crazy town. And then now he has this quote that he makes this offseason where he's like, no, Russ isn't even I think he's not a Hall of Famer or blah, 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 blah. He said, just started kind of throwing shade at Russ. And now he wants Russ on his Pittsburgh team. Methinks somebody's being maybe perhaps a little insincere in what they're saying at all times. GoX05, I want that super freak athletic defensive back from that small school, Tariq Woolen, apparently 6 foot plus 200 pounds and rumored to run in the 4.2s. Oh my God, the 4.2s. I have looked at Mr. Woolen. So let me take a look at my little list on here. Tariq Woolen, they've got him listed at 6'3". So he's listed as a big boy. He's supposed to be a pretty big boy. I don't know. He don't look 4.2 on the field. I'll say that. His patented move is he drapes receivers at the moment of truth. So he's got a great ability to accelerate right as the last second the ball is coming in and just sort of get his body like a blanket right around the receiver. Not necessarily locating the ball, just sort of just like wrapping them in his warmth. You know what I mean? Just giving them a little bit of his warmth as the ball's coming in. And then they can't see anything because the blanket's covering their face. He's a stout zone-based corner with good game speed, so he's definitely fast. Make no mistake about that. He's good at pressing, and he's overall a solid tackler when he's not taking bad angles, and he does have a little bit of a tendency to not take the best of angles to ball carriers and get kind of thrown off, where it's not even a juke. It's just a running back makes a cut to a certain way in the field, and he's just lost. He's capable of delivering quite a blow from the corner position. The ball skills just aren't really there. He's not going to turn around and track the ball or look for it or see it or do none of that stuff. He is one of those attack at the moment type. I call them the attack at the moment truth type cats. So it's the moment of truth is when the ball's arriving in there, and you have your defensive back and you have your receiver, and they're both jostling for the ball. Who's going to be the man to get it? Right? It's like those old games we played. What was that old game you play in football where you'd have one guy throw the ball up and it'd be in a group of guys and one would have to catch it, and then he got to be the guy to throw it. It's a little bit like that. These guys they're not going to catch it. They're going to come in there and try to just beat up and get physical with the receiver at that moment of truth, as opposed to turning around and looking for the ball. Sometimes this means they'll actually even let the guy catch the ball and then try to be ripping it free. And they'll be anticipating the catch coming so they can reach in and grab the hands of the ball to try to tear it free. So it's not always awesome to watch corners play it that way, but you can't deny this kid's athleticism and his movement capabilities. He'll face from front and turn to burn, and he won't even need a back pedal. He's already in a turn to burn, and he's up to full speed. So it's definitely impressive from that standpoint of things. My bottom line is he fits the Seahawks mold for a corner. He's got good zone awareness, stays clean over the top, though he will give up the short stuff in front of him. Rarely badly beaten, always seemingly near his man in coverage, which helps him with his custom drape technique. I wish he would turn his head at least every once in a while and locate the ball, but is what it is with that kid, and I think, where do I got Woolen? I don't think I had him on my list here yet. I think I would probably put, if he runs especially a fast 40, I might put him into a 4th round place of things. So I have scouted him, but I didn't put him on my big board. He'll be on there next week. But I do like him. He's a fun player to watch. Not 4.2 though. 4.2 is like, that's faster than Tyreek Hill. Or maybe as fast as Tyreek Hill. I don't know. I think Tyreek Hill ran low 4.3s. Mason Dale, we need to sign Joseph Noteboom. He would quickly learn the scheme from his time in LA. At worst, he's a solid backup, and he's only 26. Don't know much about Mr. Noteboom, other than he's got an awesome last name, Mason. But I'll take a look at him if I can find some tape on him. If you can get a lineman out of the LA scheme, that'd probably be a good smart bet to do too, because you're bringing a guy who knows what he's doing and what's required of him, and it's a very technically scheme specific thing here. That's what Carroll was talking about with Dickerson. It's not just you get any offensive line coach in to coach this offensive line group up. It's got to be a guy who can teach the zone techniques and what the Rams' offensive playbook is trying to accomplish, which is a very, very specific thing to it. That's not necessarily as much in every playbook around the NFL. Jackson says, I know it's not a need, but if George Pickens falls, we need to take him. I know it's not a need, but best player available. Jackson, if we took George Pickens in the 2nd round, I would be actually okay with it. He's an early 2nd round receiver to me. So I know it would light people on fire, but if you don't, and some of this depends on who the player is available you're passing by to take him at that point. But if you had none of the good linemen on the board that you wanted to select at that point, and then you had him, he'd be again a 1st round player if not for that injury, and he was just rounding back into shape. Getting that in the early 2nd round is good value for me. Some of this depends a little bit on his medicals, obviously, and what the staff tells you about that knee and what they see in the long-term future of it. But I might have a hard look, I'm not saying I want to make that move, but if it was made, I'd have a hard time deriding it, because I want to see a draft driven by taking the best player available. And if that was their best player available on the board and you could make that argument with a guy like Pickens, I can't get mad at him for doing the thing that I'm asking him to employ, can I? Megan says, Winfrey has my interest peaked big time. He's a monster, Megan. He's a monster. He's a big bull in a china shop. Every offensive play is like the China's getting set up across the shop, and then he's let loose like the bull with inside of it to just roar through. And it's fun to watch him because he's just a menace out there, just chaos on a football field. And he wasn't even played at his rightful position in college. Jackson, do you think Kyle Hamilton falls in the draft? Can't see someone take him in the top 10? No way Kyle Hamilton falls out of the top 10. No way. I just can't see it. He's my number two. He's my number 2 guy in this draft. I've yet to hear anybody say anything bad about him on his tape. And really the only guys I can say in this draft that anybody says that about are like, you hear that about Aiden Hutchinson. You might hear that about, maybe you hear that about Stingley or Gardner, but not even really those guys. You hear that probably about Neal Williams minus the injury. Maybe Wilson, maybe. But to me, he's the number 2 guy in this draft. He is monstrously sized of a safety. He does everything well. He hits. He can cover. He's fast. He's good in the run game. There's just nothing he can't do. To me, he's going to be a star at the next level and a star very, very quick. Ethan, I just got back from tennis practice. My coach made us do like 5 minutes of side shuffling back and forth. That sucked. That does suck. But it's good. It's how you get faster with it. Amari Taylor, Roger McCreary could be a nice pickup for us. It's tough with Roger on this one for me, Amari. Number one, Roger played in basically a man-based scheme in Auburn. He has almost no zone familiarity at all. So that's the first thing that's going to make it hard for him to land in Seattle. And that's what we got to look at this through. Don't make any mistake about this to me, Amari. He's a good player. He's one of those guys that you just look beyond the measurables, just watch him play on tape, he can play. So I'm not saying he isn't a good player, but Seattle definitely has usually a certain set type of corner, like with receiver, that they look for. They've got certain metrics they want to look for. And if you talk about there being a draft loaded with 6 foot plus on up cornerbacks who have a zone-based background and how they've been playing in college, and then you have a guy like Roger McCreary who's 5'11", and then you talk about them also looking at, in addition to that, cornerbacks that have 33-inch long arms or above. And Roger McCreary has 29-inch arms. So he's 4 inches off of what they look for. He's only got a 70-inch wingspan, which is itsy-bitsy teeny tiny. So those things are almost Seattle's a team that in the past have had somewhat of those initial markers alone will push them away from drafting those kind of players. They will make exceptions, but if you're an exception to that rule, it's usually going to be a guy picked in the 5th round, like Ugo Amadi, right? It's not going to be one of the higher pick corners. You go look at Shaquille Griffin, for instance. Go look at those measurables I'm talking about. Did Shaquille Griffin have 33-inch long arms? Yes, he did. Did he run a certain speed? Was he 6 foot high? Zone back? Yes. So I think McCreary is just off the board for our Seahawks. Poor guy he's got T-Rex arms. He's got the T-Rex arms of this draft. He does. He's a good football player, great in man, a little handsy, but always close to the receiver, always makes the catch, makes the tackle after the catch. You're not going to get any yak on this guy. He doesn't ever have guys that have a lot of separation from him. He understands little nuanced techniques. He can do little subtle pulls that you can't catch by the officials. He's got a lot to his game. But boy, the size stuff is real, and it may end up pushing him into only a slot basis at the next level. Jackson Shore says Zach Charbonnet is a sleeper. He is. Yeah, I hope we take a look. 6'1", big, runs hard, can cut. He's your power back that can still be nimble in space, and that's hard to find. And power backs will usually be they're just going to be meat grinders, but he's actually got some vision and a little bit of a jump cut to his ability on things. I like Zach's game quite a bit. Hawks, it sounds like they're going to run it back on the offensive line. Maybe Hawks, although some of this is negotiation stuff, some of this is not showing your hand. So this is why you always have to take a little grain of salt with some of the stuff they talk about with personnel stuff. But I certainly can see how they go back to Dwayne Brown, for instance. That makes a lot of sense. The left tackle market is pared down to very thin, both in free agency, both in the draft. Center's a little bit deeper now, but it's not super deep in free agency. You could see it get down to nothing there, just like left tackle quickly. So these things could draw them back to Posick and Brown from that respective things. I don't think they're going to take back Shell, though. Dante King says, did you hear that the Seahawks met with Treylon Burks and Cade Otton? That's interesting. Treylon Burks, huh? I'm not surprised on Cade Otton. I mean, the kid does everything really good. He's like a poor man's Travis Kelce a little bit, not the same athleticism, not the same speed, but just really everything about him is solid, and I wouldn't want to pick him in the second round. I hope Seahawks aren't looking at him there, but fourth round, fifth round, be a good spot for Cade, be a good spot to go pick him up. And Treylon's not going to be there when Seattle picks in the second round. No how, no way. But he's a good player. I get Randall excited. Puff has been a member for 4 months. Thank you, Puff. He says, what's up, Brando? Go Hawks, Puff. I heard Pete talk earlier. How do you feel about him saying he wants to bring back a lot of the guys from last year? Worried? What, me worry? Now, I'm mildly worried, but I think a little bit again, and this is a little bit of just the tactics at hand of, and NM74801, thank you for subscribing. I think there's a little bit of the tactics at hand of just you doing what you're going to do, what you're going to do just to kind of not show your hand on things. And there's a couple of guys I wouldn't mind seeing them bring back out of this group. You brought back DJ Reed, Sidney Jones, even Dwayne Brown. I can see the logic and understanding of why you bring back Dwayne Brown. He was my number 12 most valuable free agent on my big board of free agent list last week. Why? Was it because Dwayne Brown's so amazing at this point in his career? Was it because I love old ass left tackles? No. It's because the market is a market of scarcity at certain positions this offseason. And free agency is no wonderland. We are not diving into Scrooge McDuck's vault of riches this offseason as far as it concerns free agency. You can dive into that vault, but there's just going to be like a short little thin like kiddie pool layer of coins in that vault. That's all you're going to get to. So you got to make do with what you got. And I can definitely see why you'd be drawn back on some of those guys, even Rashad Penny. I wouldn't hate that. Now the Quandre Diggs one gets me concerned. That one, Puff, that one's got me worried. Going and spending big money on Quandre Diggs right now is I'm gonna have a hard time backing that one. And I know there'll be some people in the chat that'll fight me on it and fight my lack of liking it, but I will not be able to really wrap my head around that one. I'll find it concerning. Mesa Dale, did you ever look at Donovan West from ASU? I know I'm asking again, not trying to annoy you. I'm just really excited about him. No, you're not annoying me at all, man. And I did not get to him yet. So sorry, Don West. And I apologize for that. I have been grinding tape nonstop. So I'm just grinding as hard as I can on this stuff, but it takes me a while just because I do try to go more just beyond the highlights with these guys and get into some game tape. And it can be a lot of viewing. You know what I mean? The hours roll by quick when you're going through it like that, but he is on my list. I'm absolutely going to check him out. So I'm glad if you're excited about him, I want to see him. I want to know I want to know who's on your guys' board and who you guys are getting interested by and who's jumping out to you. So absolutely. Long snappers. Charles Riley, the $5 donation. What's up, Charles Riley? Mr. Riley is in the house. Says, looks like Pete listened to MJ's Man in the Mirror and decided to change. I'm looking for the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to. I could just see Coach Carroll sitting in front of a mirror wearing like old school headphones from the late 90s, right? That had the foam. And he's like looking in the mirror and he's like doing an old man dance. Like, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. I could see him doing it. I could see him. Wife enters the room. What are you doing? Nothing. Door closes. Hey. You can't tell me that Carroll doesn't do Michael Jackson in front of his mirror every morning. You can't tell me that. I know it's the truth. Oh, let's hope he did, Charles. Let's hope he did make some changes. Washington Fist Quest with a super chat of $2 says, I hope we can sign a few Beagle boys for the O-line. Me as well, man. Me as well. I'll sign anyone for the O-line at this point, Washington Fist Quest. Sign anybody. Anyone. Anyone. Thank you for the donation, though, man. And Cade Otton is a good blocker. He's a complete block. There's no real weakness to Cade's game. He doesn't do anything magnificently. This is why he's not, to me, drawn to first or second round status. There's nothing really that you look at his game and go, here's your upside here, where when he taps into this, my God, look out. But solid across the board, not deficient. He can do everything you want a inline tight end to do. You know, run block, pass block, take on a defensive end for a couple seconds there and hold up okay, move his feet well, mirror and pass protection, get down the field, catch the ball out away from his body, high point the ball, run smooth, easy routes. Even though he doesn't have a lot of speed and quickness, he's also not deficient in those realms either. He's got everything moves well with him. And I can understand why they like him. Megan says, B, I got asked a question I would be interested in hearing your answer to. Aside from Steve Largent, which Hawks players would be carved on your Mount Rushmore and why? The players that I would have carved out on the Mount Rushmore, obviously, yes, Largent would be one of them. Walter Jones would be one of them. Walter retired as a guy that's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think that almost that basis alone should vault the guy up onto a Rushmore status unless you've got 5 guys that are first ballot Hall of Famers. So, I mean, that's kind of with him. He was dominant, helped the team get to the Super Bowl. You could feel his effect on that team and having a guy like that on that side and how good it made the team. So he would be my number 2 guy there. Cortez Kennedy would be my number 3. Another, if I'm not mistaken, first ballot Hall of Famer, 3-tech defensive tackle. Game record type guy, 1 defensive player of the year in a season, Megan, where you were 2-14. I had a conversation recently with Chad Brown about this. Players can only deal with the atmosphere and environment they are within. Cortez can't deal with the fact that he got drafted by a Seattle team that was getting bought by Ken Behring and was going to go into the crapper for the next few years, why Behring could then drive fan disinterest away so that he could then move the football team to LA. So that wasn't Tez's fault. He still balled the hell out through most of the 90s. So he'd be my number 3. Now, number 4 is where we get tricky. It gets tricky. And see to rock around on time. It gets tricky. God, Megan, that's a good one. That's really not an easy one to answer. And this is a controversial one at that, isn't it? It's a controversial one at that. This is where, for me, it gets hard not to put, like, Russell Wilson's the first answer that comes to mind. That's the easy answer to hear. I could just say that. Russell Wilson, done. But then there's a part of me that again goes to my initial thing that I said about this, first ballot Hall of Famer. I think Russell Wilson's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think he's a first ballot Hall. I think. I know Bobby Wagner's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And Russell certainly has been the Superman, and we've been more reliant on him over the last 10 years than we've been on Bobby Wagner. So I probably would have a hard time not putting Russell up for that, but I'm sort of going back against my initial personal metric for how you get up on that Rushmore. Can I put 5 guys on there, Megan? Can I just add to the cliff? Can I just keep giving it to him, please? I'll go with Russell, Megan. I can't deny Russell's impact of the last 10 years, and I do think he'll be probably a first ballot Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. I do. Charles, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, if you want to make the Hawks a better team, you got to look at the D and make a change. If you want to make the Hawks a better team, you got to look at the D and make a change. Na, 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 na. Oh, Lord. So when the young kids won't get Charles, all the young kids in the chat are just like, what the hell are they singing about? It's an 80s thing, guys. It's Michael at his most MJ. It's Michael at his most glove status, man. At the height of his glovedom. Amari Taylor, if we don't get to the NFC Championship then or Super Bowl, then we are probably going to blow it up. I would think that they would get closer to that stance of things. We'll be able to tell a little bit closer to Amari on the deals they hand out in free agency or the deals they don't hand out in free agency. Is it more of the 1 or 2 year type things that they're doing? We'll see on that. That will inform us a little bit as well. But I agree with you. I think that it's going to march us closer to that realm of things. If indeed they're just trying to push through on a go for it 1 more year type blast. Randall says, said he was recovering from procedures, so he won't do drills. Oh, is that... Cade up. That's right. Mason, it didn't sound like Carroll is tied to Wagner. It didn't get the impression either that he's coming back for sure, not at the number that he's at. And there are probably negotiations going on between literally the front office and Wagner because he doesn't have an agent. So again, this is the game being played a little bit with these press conferences that we've got to parse through a little bit of what is it that we can take away from this that's real, and this is information we didn't really know for sure before, and what is stuff that's sort of window dressing. And I think that I would put in the window dressing category even the Wagner quote, where I think that they could easily bring him back. I think when this gets shaken out, they'll bring him back at a discounted rate, but he will have to renegotiate. And that is on Wagner to agree to do that, as well as it is on the team to want to see it. Randall says, last 20 years, the first center average draft slot is like number 38. 50% of centers drafted in round 1 make a Pro Bowl in their career. High hit rate on top end center prospects. So Randall again brings up a very interesting thing here. When you look at the 20 years, the first centers taken off of drafts, number 38 is the average positioning. And yet, 50% of these guys end up making a Pro Bowl. This is a little bit of what we call depressed value that you can go pluck up. This is what you had sitting in your hands last year with Creed Humphrey. And you could be seeing again this year with Linderbaum. And if that does the case, Randall, if that does happen, we can only hope, as I say with the theme of this offseason, that they learn their lessons. You passed on Creed Humphrey last year. You knew it was a mistake in the moment. You know damn well it's a mistake right now. So fix that mistake. Go get yourself some Linderbaum. Go get yourself some Baum. Okay, Baum helps. Jackson Shore, if we don't re-sign Penny, do you want to draft one or just grab a guy like Marlon Mack or Fournette? Marlon Mack doesn't do a whole lot for me, Jackson. He is a popular guy here in the chat, mentioned quite often. I do like myself some Leonard Fournette. I would certainly kick the tires on that and find out the cost. I think he would be a fit here and an interesting player. So he's the guy that, of the running backs that are available past Penny, he's the guy that sort of jumps out to me. I don't know if I want to have Fournette on the roster if the intention is to keep Chris Carson on the roster, though, too. The thought process from my standpoint would be that you move on from Carson to then bring Fournette in to fill the Carson role, the hammer, the A-gap hammer in our offense. Danny McCormick, Pete comments were good today. Also, the comments about upgrading the O-line and saying put it is a lie to me. I don't believe it. I agree with you, Danny. I'm not, and I think it's right on Carroll to hide his hand here. I don't expect him. There's times you understand when they can't tell us everything that's going on in the background because there's negotiations. There's a lot of moving parts. So we've got to take everything a little bit like, let's see where this sits up at. Jackson Shore, wish someone asked Pete about moving D-Law back to right guard. It's a must. That would have been a good question. That would have been. Randall says, correct me if I'm wrong, the Bama center got drafted ahead of Creed last year. I believe Philly snagged him. Landon Dickerson. I got Dickerson in my mind, our offensive line coach, and Dickerson. Yes, Dickinson was drafted just a little bit ahead of Creed Humphrey by the Eagles, who then played him at left guard last year. Speaks to the talent of Dickerson. He came in and played left guard and played pretty well in his first year He is going to be the center of the future for the Eagles. They're a team that does a great job of valuing their offensive line. It's part of the reason they got to the playoffs this year with a quarterback like Hurts under center. But yeah, he was a center in Alabama for sure. He had more wow factor to his tape, Randall. He was more of the people mover on film than Creed. He could move a little bit better than Creed on film, but he also had the ACL injuries. And that tells you about where the evaluation went really haywire with Creed, where the guy that went ahead of him in Dickinson had these crazy ACL injuries, including the last year of college. Had the wow factor traits, but Creed was clean, played a lot of college football, not any injury worries with him. Strange sometimes the way the evaluation process works. Daniel W. Zion Johnson is awesome. When I looked at a tape of all the three techniques we could take, I also saw Zion Johnson doing quite well versus them in Senior Bowl. Yeah, the word out of the Senior Bowl was he came in as left guard 1, and he left the Senior Bowl as left guard 1. So nothing changed out of what happened with what he did in that week. So he was as good as advertised, so to speak. I fully expect him to be a first-round player taken, probably taken even in, let's say, the first 24 picks. But he's outstanding left guard. This is a draft filled with very few outstanding left guards. He separates himself quite a bit from the rest of the pack by my feeling of it. I think he's a really good player. I think he's a very clean prospect too, where you know what you're going to get with this guy. There's not, to me, much bust factor here. Randy Miller says he's on a contract for $37 million this year and $43 million next year. Can you tell me who is going to pay that for him? Run around Russ. Don't get it, run around Russ. Yeah, Randall, when you're hearing, I'm sure, Randy, there's been some talk today a little bit about, well, if Russell Wilson's staying now, does this mean contract extension? No, he's not to the final year of his deal, which is supposed to be when Seattle even opens the door to renegotiation. So no, we shouldn't be signing him to a new contract extension. No way, no how, regardless if the position is to keep Russ here long term. You're hearing rumors right now about the Packers supposedly just about due to make Aaron Rodgers the highest paid quarterback in history, as he's just about to be heading into 40 years old at $50 million. I don't know how you build a roster appropriately around one player making $50 million. And if the player is making that kind of money, if they are taking up that percentage of the cap, they better be Superman. They better be Superman at that point. Jackson Shore, the more I watch of Lucas from WSU, the more I like him. Even though he's a Cougar. Yep. He's another, I talked about the clean prospect of Zion Williams. To me, Abraham Lucas is the Zion Johnson of right tackles in this draft. The floor is incredibly high. I still think there's even some ceiling with him. So he's not some what you get out the box is what you're going to get long term. There's not a lot of growth there, but it is good what you get out the box. No, he can grow even more. He can get a little stronger. But he's got it all, and technically masterful, size, length, can move in space despite being as big as he is, does a great job in where his hand placement lies, never getting his hands out, his legs out too far apart, never gets himself pulled out over his skis or gets pulled down like a lot of linemen are doing in college football now, the defensive linemen. There's a couple guys that we can look at prospect-wise on these lines that just have that happen to them all the time, where they're just getting yanked forward, yanked down. That doesn't happen to him. Never happens to him. He's just always under control, always in good positioning. There's a couple little things you can get at him with. He's a little susceptible as far as a bull rush, a little susceptible with a sort of a crossover move, where the defender comes in and plants hard to one side and then goes back to the outside shoulder of the tackle and starts to reround that arc. If you can get Lucas to set down early and plant down just a little prematurely, you can get him there. But other than that, he's clean as hell. Megan Fa'alele, oh hell yes, oh yeah, give me some Fa'alele, better believe it. Dante King, have you looked up Abraham Lucas? He is good. Maybe we could try to get him. Dante, I did if you go look at my Seahawks scouting channel, my other alt channel I do here on YouTube. I did a whole film breakdown on Abraham Lucas. So you can definitely go check that out. I did like a half hour on him, almost 45 minutes, I think, on Abraham Lucas. But yeah, I've watched a ton of him. He's just very clean prospect. But everything put together, I mean, a lot of snaps played in college football, knows how to play the position, great in pass pro, great in the run game. He can do the movement-based stuff that our scheme would want to see. Just outstanding player. I have him right now, I think, going in the first round. Again, as much just because I think that some of it is that he deserves to be in the first round. Some of it is that there's not any other real right tackles in this first round outside of Akeem Akuanu. But and maybe Trevor Penning. Some people might say Trevor Penning, but I like him better. I just like him better. Jackson Shore, is Desmond Ridder still your favorite quarterback prospect, Branda? I think Malik Willis is a little bit better. I think Desmond Ridder is a little more pro-ready, but I think with Willis, if he can round out and polish the rough edges of his game, can be a better quarterback. But Desmond Ridder, I still think, is the second best quarterback in this draft as it sits by me. I think he's going to go run a 40 in the combine, and he's going to run like a sub 4.5 40, and he's going to blow everybody's heads out of their mind. And he's not going to surprise me in the least because you can see that on tape. I think what my comparison was when I was looking at him initially was like, he's like a Colin Kaepernick, but can throw the ball, with some of his movement stuff. He does a little bit. I don't know. I like Ridder still. I still gravitate on the tape. I got to watch some more on him. I've got to watch some more on Sam Howell. And I've got right now, no, I did. I put Howell ahead of Ridder. I technically put Howell ahead of Ridder. My decision on this was Howell is just a younger quarterback than some of these other guys. Like Pickett and Ridder, they're just a little older than him. And I'm giving him the benefit. But both Ridder and Howell are really close to me. And then Willis is a little bit, has got a shoulder width above them as far as prospect goes. But we're talking about second round guys down the board on them. Charles Riley with the $5 donation says Russ likes to run around. Yeah, he loves Pete, then puts him down. Hawk fans, let me steer you wise. Rodgers is an evil guy. Rodgers is definitely playing around with the Packers' emotions right now, and he loves himself the drama, and he loves himself the ego massaging that you get with this intrigue into Willie or Woney, where's he going? It's such a paper-thin way of getting attention, but some people like that stuff, I guess, More power to Rodgers, I guess. He's squeezing every last drop out of this that he can get for whatever it's worth. Spectre7 has been 5 months a Hawks Nest Pro Bowler. Thank you, Spectre7. He says, new defense equals more aggressive Adams. Could be fun. I would expect that, Spectre7. I don't think that there's lip service involved here. You ain't moving Adams. Can't afford to do so. He's here. So why not get the best out of him? And I think part of what's driving this talk from Hurt of going to more of a 3-4 base scheme, to being more attacking, to being more blitz heavy, is the better utilization of Adams, which he also spoke in addition to in his press conference. I've got to use him better. We've got to use him better. He still is the player he always has been. We've got to put him in a better position to succeed. And I think those are all encouraging remarks from him. Hopefully they now deliver with it, right? Hopefully. But encouraging nonetheless. And yes, I'm expecting Sector 7 it to be more aggressive. That's what opening the door 3-4 defenses do. It's hard to be aggressive in a 4-3 defense. Hard to be real blitz-centric in that type of defense, historically speaking. 4-3 defenses tend to be that we're going to sit back, soften up the defense, take away the big plays, rally to the ball. 3-4 defenses coming downhill. We're going to be strangling you all day. It's going to be just wave after wave of pressure packages, free blitzers, never know what side it's coming from. That's why you go to a 3-4 in that realm of things. And I hope they do. I hope they follow through with this. And I think they will in this realm of it for sure. Randall, maybe you already touched on this, but what's your take on Carroll saying they'd gotten arrogant on defense? Is that him saying he was slow to change or admit they needed to change? I think it's a bit of both. He also spoke, Randall, about specifically this is stuff they've been wanting to do for a while, which speaks to, okay, you knew then that you need to make changes, but you didn't, but you've been wanting to do it for a while. So we know from that they were aware these changes need to be made past just being faced with it last year. I I think that he was leaning back in at all times, and that if I was to make a guess on this, Randall, I would think that if I took Carroll and put him under a lie detector test, he would say, what I had thought was that we could continue to run our cover 3 stuff with a little bit of cover 2 sprinkled in once I got the talent in place to get it done. Once I had the dogs, once I had the rejuvenation of the Legion of Boom. No longer Legion of Boom, but I could get talent back in that was commiserate with what I had back then to a degree. I wasn't going to get what I got back then, but something close, right? Something that was near enough to make my scheme work. But the thing that he then gets faced with this past season in totality is that you've invested now for the last 3 years all these assets into the defensive side of the ball, and you're not getting those returns running your same stuff. And so he'd been hearing it in prior years, not just from us in the fan base, right? Probably not even just from the front office and what they're hearing from there internally, but also out across the league. Where I'm sure Pete was hearing this from fellow coaches and people, you need to change, Pete. You need to get this going in a different direction. And he was probably just digging his heels in going, yeah, you guys just don't understand. We haven't had the right guy. We've had the injury thing. We haven't gotten the pass rushers to make my scheme work. We're missing this corner with that. I think there was always an excuse. That's why I always point to it's a little bit of the knife, the sword cutting 2 ways with Carroll, where his positivity and glass half always full can help in the development of players, can keep a team engaged in a year like last year where you're a cellar dweller, but nobody gave up on that football field. Everybody was still all in. That's the upside of that. The downside of it seems to be you get a coach that's sometimes immovable off his spot because he is always seeing the silver lining and never the clouds and never the rain. And sometimes you need a goddamn umbrella. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just need that. So that's where I do sit with the Randall, but I also think it's, and not tooting my own horn here, but I also think it's a little bit of acknowledgement in some of the things that we've talked about that we haven't been crazy in what we've been saying here. It hasn't been so outside the box insane and us pointing out some of these issues and problems that have plagued the team. Jackson Shore, I wonder what team will pull the trigger first on a quarterback. So many think the Commanders will grab Pickett at 11, but that's too high for Pickett, IMO. I think that you're going to see 3 quarterbacks taken in the first round minimum right now. I think you very well could see 4 if Desmond Ridder blows up the combine like I think he very well could. But I think that some of that's driven by factors that go outside of the realm of the quarterbacks being worthy of first round picks. It's a little bit of the fact that you don't have a lot of quarterbacks available on the open market. It has to do with there's a lot of teams that kind of need quarterbacks in this given offseason. It also has to do with the fact this draft isn't deep with quarterbacks. Right? That factors into it. All 4 of these quarterbacks in this draft would all be behind the top 5 quarterbacks of last year's draft. All of them. All of them. Nobody's going to take Malik Willis over even Mac Jones. And I'm not high on Mac Jones, but that's kind of just the reality of it. So they're going to get driven up, and then the really thing that cements it in for why you're going to see three quarterbacks taken in the first round, in my opinion, is the 5th round option. It's that 5th year of club control, because we've got to remember now the new CBA, right? The new rules, the new league, this subtle thing that was implemented into the CBA that we started to feel last year. You can't hold out anymore. It's $50,000 a day that you hold out. So having a 5th year of club control now to then go into addition of 2 years of franchise tagging gives the team a lot of control over a very young quarterback. And, I think that will drive that at the end of the day. Random McDaniel says, Kennard equals Alex Leatherwood. I'd read there's talk of him moving to guard, so I assume he's slow. Yeah, he is slow, Randall. It's just the reality with him. He's just not a quick, fleet-of-foot guy. Leatherwood had more awesome moments on tape. What drove Leatherwood to be picked by Cable was he had those badass moments on tape where he's ragdolling guys. And then your snaps in between with Leatherwood, your 15 other snaps in between, he's looking boring and unenthused and like he's got the Rasheed Walker of Penn State type body language at times. But then he lays down this absolute slobber knocker block, and that wows you. I would say Kennard doesn't have as much the slobber knocker blocks. He's just subtly dominant in the run game. He just moves people in the run game. He's not blasting away. He's going to move you. He's effective. But there's a little bit of, size-wise, they're very close to each other. They also have the kind of same body style. They kind of think they're a little more top heavy. Random McDaniel, Hawks Nest, get a haircut? I did. I got myself a little cut. My hair grows fast, I'll tell you what. I tell them now, just hack it all off. I'm like, I don't need to be back here every week and a half. Just take it down. One of these streams, it's going to be bald. One of these streams, I'm just going to go, just not enough to deal with it. Jackson Shore says, looks like the Mariners streams are going to have to wait. Brando, this lockout is horrible for baseball. Yeah, baseball has been intent for years, it seems like, at times, in trying to find ways to kill itself. From the elongated games to the cheating scandals, to now you're going to get a lockout at missed games after already having not 20 years ago and an end of the season completely canceled out because you couldn't get the negotiations right. It's a sad day for sports, not just for baseball. And, I don't think that this is going to end anytime soon. Random McDaniel says, if I'm the Jags, I take Neal or another tackle and protect that quarterback, make the pick, and be done with it. If I could trade back 5 spots or 6 spots, Randall, I would, because that's an extra second-round pick if you can pull it off. You probably can't get that deal done, though, this year, and if I'm led back to it, I take Neal because I think he's well, Randall. I think he's at least, clean as a prospect. Like, you're getting a guy who's going to help your quarterback there. And people think, well, that's being too simplistic. You need to go for value. It's like, no. You need to go and make moves to protect the quarterback now, not get overly, well, Hutchinson's technically better value at that point. That's why I say try to trade back. But you can't trade back. Take the best tackle on the board. Call it a day. He ain't bad. He'll be a good upper level tackle in the league. He'll be a Laramie Tunsil type when it's all said and done. But just make the move. Megan says, what number is our first draft pick in the draft? So we're 9th, I believe, in the second round. So that would put us at 41, Megan, I think. Jackson, dang, you got Ahmad Gardner high on your list. Dude is going to be a beast. Never allowed a touchdown in his entire college career. He looks as close a prospect to me as Richard Sherman looked in zone coverage and some of his just feel for zone and how he moves and his just route recognition and reading things. Great tackler, long, no holes to his game, can still flip his hips even though he's 6'3". A guy like Stingley, for instance, who I believe I've got lower on the board right now, if I'm not mistaken, his best tape was his freshman year. I should have Stingley lower. I don't think I lowered him yet, but I should. His best tape was a couple years ago. Ahmad's out there balling out this year, getting better this year. Great prospect. Great prospect. Jackson says, wow, I didn't know Kenny Pickett was already 24. He's perfect for us. Now Pete and John are praying he falls to us. Could you guys imagine if we picked Cody Pickett in the second round with Wilson still on the roster? Oh, God. Oh, my God, that would be... I was watching Pickett warm up at the combine, and he's indoors at the combine warming up, on a 10-yard throw to his buddy or whatever, and he's still wearing the glove. He's still wearing the glove inside. 10-yard throw. Amari Taylor says Cardinals taking Jordan Davis probably. I could see it. I will say that the Cardinals are going to have a need at the edge. They're probably going to lose Chandler Jones. Say nothing of the fact that if they're keeping Kyler Murray, I'm going to guess with as much as he's been hammered over the first couple of years, they're going to try to look to get him a little more offensive line help. I could see them looking at tackle, guard. Randall, let's hope teams reach for some of these quarterbacks and push the talent down to us. Yeah, we want to see 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round. It's great for our Hawks, the more quarterbacks that are taken. Just pushes that one better player down into our lap. Joe Mann says, is Malik McDowell available still, or is he with the Browns? Haha, what a story this guy had. Joe, I don't know if you know about the current twist of the story. He is a free agent, but there was a recent incident after his successful year with the Browns here where he was caught buck naked, supposedly buck naked at a children's playground or something. I don't know. It wasn't a good story. So I think Malik's days with the NFL are truly at this point probably. I think he ended up wrestling an officer too again. Megan says, Carson isn't the first player that we've had that's had a chronic neck injury that we've drafted. Why do we do this? Surely the front office knows that it's chronic, don't they? I don't know, Megan. I don't know the other players that they drafted with chronic neck injuries. So you've had neck injuries that have popped up on guys that have finished their careers like Chancellor and Averill, but I don't know if those guys had those injuries coming in the door or if not that they developed over time. I don't have a good excuse for you if they're drafting people that they know this to be the case on. There's really no excuse for it. You draft injured players, they're going to probably remain injured into the NFL. And Carson's been injured going back to high school. To expect him going forward into his career another year older to be any less beaten up and battered and off the field is kind of a fool's errand if you're going to go that route if you're Seattle. Washington Visquest says, I just hope we draft someone with a cool name. If Boy Mafe is sitting there with our first pick, we should take him. I don't know what position he plays, but that's a minor detail. Boy Mafe is a pretty cool name. You know what I mean? If we're going for the all-name club, I mean, Perry and Winfrey's pretty badass. Fidarian Mathis ain't bad either. I mean, that's, you want to line up against Fidarian Mathis? I don't want no part of Fidarian. Who we got on the offensive side of the ball? Fa'alele is pretty good. It's pretty good as far as names go. Jamari Slayer for a guard. It's a good guard name. Slayer with the pancake. Jackson Shore, we save $3 million cutting Carson. It just makes sense. It does. It's actually almost $3.5 million you save. It's a significant portion of money. It's no little bit. It's no pittance. Amari Taylor says Kobe Bryant would be nice for us. I like me Kobe Bryant. I did take a look at him. His patented move is a explosive lateral movement. He's a real bouncy, athletic cornerback who excels at dislodging the ball at the moment of truth. Kind of a lot of similarities of his game and like Tyreek Woolen's game, right? Again, guys aren't great trackers of the ball. They're just going to try to beat the hell out of the receiver when the ball's just about to land in the hands. He mainly played in zone, in cover 3 at that, so he's got a lot of familiarity with cover 3. Good speed, not great. Average as a tackler. Very good about staying in his cover 3 responsibility, but he does sometimes the annoying thing we always see at times where he's assignment correct in cover 3, right? So he does his bail technique, drops to deep zone, keeps everything in front of him, keeps himself clean over the top, but will constantly give up the catches underneath in front of him, which can be annoying because it's like, is he doing any route reading, any pattern reading? Is he able to jump any kind of route? He will come up and make the tackle. He's never far away from the receiver. He's always pretty close in coverage. But he does give up his share of completions from this realm of things. He's awesome side to side as a mover. He's really, really, really good in that respect. That's a unique trait to have for a cornerback, to be able to just kind of move quickly, one way or the other, rather than just forward to back. Real loose hips in that respect. Good change of direction. Again, these are things you absolutely love to have in the cornerback position. Part of what for me vaults him up into the 4th round, as opposed to like a 5th round area where he might be otherwise from that. But I like Kobe Bryant's game quite a bit. He does fit them. He fits the Seahawks mold. Megan says, I nodded at PC's arrogant comment, and you all know how much I adore Coach. Yeah, we keep it real, right, Megan? We keep it honest. Sometimes honesty is beautiful and lovely, and it's a great thing to talk about. Sometimes it's ugly, and it's you got to face both, though. That's all we're doing with it. And it's good to see Pete Carroll's doing it. I give him the thumbs up for doing it, Megan. I've been hard on him about it, but I've only been hard on him about it because he won't recognize it. Recognize it? Great. We're on the road. We're on the road to recovery. Washington FizQuest, why is there no world beater quarterbacks this draft? Just an off year? It's a good question, actually. There's a little bit of depth to the question. You might not think initially Washington FizQuest on that, because I think a little bit of what's happening here to a degree at the quarterback position that is affecting this year is a little bit of your spread concept, one read, no quarterbacks doing none of the under center stuff. You've got to do so much now extrapolation with these quarterbacks, much like offensive linemen, in making a read of what they are and what they're going to be versus what they are on the college field. I can't give you a good answer as to why this year is so different, where you don't just have at least one or two or three that are right there. When you look at these guys, though, they all have weaknesses to their games that really show up on tape and that you can see, or something to them that's such a big question mark. Why with Cody Pickett does it take to year 5 for you to start to have the light bulb turn on? And even then, you've got the short hands and small hands and arm strength questions. Just usually when you get the prospects, there'll be some questions like Trey Lance last year. There's questions on him of he's so young, rough, raw, but the traits, the powerful arm, the deep ball, the mobility, the mobility as a runner. Like you look at him versus Malik Willis, who would look tiny compared to Trey Lance as a runner on the football field. Or Lawrence or Justin Fields, who are just pure throwers of the football, where, like I was talking about with Hal, it doesn't just easily come out of his hand. It's not just free and easy, right? Free and easy. Malik Wilson, it's not free and easy. Even Ritter's got a little bit of a release that goes all over the place. So I don't know why this year's this way. You do get years like this, right? We had the Christian Ponder, Jake Locker year a few years ago. I think more often than not, we just get used to what's usually the rule of thumb, which is that there is usually at least 3 guys that we go first round quarterback, top 15 quarterback, top 10 quarterback, top 5 quarterback. There's usually at least 3 of those guys. But you do get the every once in a while year where it's just, the tape's just a little bit ugly. Randall says, nothing pisses me off more than a corner who won't turn his head around. Shaq Griffith was probably the worst I've seen. Very true. Yeah, very true. And we've had a couple through the years here, Randall, that we've seen that were in that same realm of things. Going back watching some Chad Brown tape as I was preparing for his interview, Ken Lucas was that way as well, where Ken had ball skills at times, but there's times too where he was not looking back for the ball ever. And it's the thing you should really have within this defense is an ability to look back for the ball, because you're not being asked as much to be sticky in man coverage. So your eyes should be more often on a quarterback, reading the ball, reading its trajectory, less of you just sitting there staring at the receiver trying to stay, with him a little bit, in my opinion. But I agree, it's a little bit of a thing that can drive me crazy too, Randall, because those are the guys that we live in an age now with receivers across the league that are contested catching masters. If it's near them, they're going to grab it. You're DeAndre Hopkins type guy. And if you have a corner that's deficient in that and he's hoping he's going to knock it out of those guys' strong hands, he ain't going to do it. He ain't getting it done. It's not happening. Washington VizQuest, do you know if Trey Smith played all last season? Chiefs took him late last year, fell in the draft due to blood clots or a heart condition or something, was hoping we'd take a flyer on him. I think he played almost all year. If not all, it was like 75% of the year. And yeah, it wasn't just the heart condition with him as well. His tape showed a guy that was a little uninspiring at times in his will to go after it. That's a little bit of his, like, is this guy all in on this? Where's he at? Where's a little bit of the tenacity I need to see from a guy? Played a lot of, I think, tackle in college. But there was a little bit of those questions to his game, and he ramped it up when he got to the pro level, which is good on him, but it wasn't necessarily showing up there on the tape. As you knew the tools were there. I think he had the high school pedigree, being like a 5-star guy and all that, but you wondered on the other aspect with him. Like, does he want it? Does he love football? Is he all in on this? But props to them. They saw it in it and turned into a really good player. think he went before Stone Forsythe. Yeah, I think he went. I thought he went like third, fourth round. Mason Dale says, if you don't know Joseph Noteboom, go back and watch the playoff game against the Bucks. He took over for an injured Whitworth and really played well. A third-round pick in 2018. I'll take a look, Mason. I'll take a look. I'm meaning to go back and watch that game, actually, and I haven't had a chance yet. Randall, our first-round pick better play with his hand in the dirt or standing up next to the defensive end, O-line or D-line, outside linebacker. First pick better play with his hand in the dirt or standing up. Hopefully so. Hopefully so, Randall. Emmanuel Mendehane, finally making a live stream. First in a while. Go Hawks. Go Hawks, Emmanuel. Randall says Burks has got 4-time gloves. Yeah, he's got some big mitts. He's got those dinner plate mitts. Those dinner plates. Randall McDaniel says I like the wide receiver from Penn State too, Jaha Dotson. And I do like his game, Randall. I've got him, I believe, in my third. I've got him, I think, lower than some people do, actually. No, I got him he's in my second round. He's a late second rounder for me. He's a little in that mold of, like the kid out of Ole Miss last year, right? A little bit of the smaller receiver, but he's like a smaller guy, but can do all the things, plays bigger than he is. He's not got a great catch radius, but it's not natural great catch radius, but he sort of by his play and his ability increases his catch radius. Excellent route runner, competitive, solid all-around guy. From a size standpoint, though, I don't know. I'm a little worried with him as being a little bit of a slider dude, but I think he definitely fits right along with that same kid. Was he taken in the second round last year by, I think, the Jets? I forget what was his name. What was his name? Jets receiver. Okay, yeah, so Elijah Moore. Kind of reminds me of like a little bit, maybe a little like an inch taller Elijah Moore kind of guy. Charles, has the combine started yet, or is that tomorrow? Charles, they've started doing the measurements, I think, a little bit, and they've done the interviews. So it's happening right now, but the real like live wire stuff's going to go down here in the next couple days. Randall says, I wouldn't be mad if we drafted the running back from either Michigan or Bama in the 4th or 5th round. I wouldn't either. I like them. I like the value there on both those guys, Randall. 4th or 5th round's fine for both those dudes. Don't want to go 3rd round. Don't want to go 2nd round with running back. That's the one place I would just like to stay. Let's avoid that. Charles, with a $5 donation, says, Brando, what's your guilty pleasure romance flick? At Jacob Kessinger is a sucker for Sleepless in Seattle, and I watch Dirty Dancing if it's on the tube. What would be my sucker romantic flick? I'll give you mine, Charles. I'll give you mine, but it's not a comedy one. So it's definitely not super bright and happy and shiny, actually. But what was it? Great Expectations with Ethan Hawke. I don't go back and watch it a lot, but every time I watch it, I really like it. And I love that director. He's one of my favorite directors out there. He doesn't do as much stuff, but he's great. He's great. Randall says, personally, I'm okay with Bobby, Diggs, and Carson leaving. Probably need to re-sign Brown as long as it makes sense money-wise. Also okay with re-signing Reed and Jones. I agree with you 100% on all that, Randall. I would. That's the way I would like to lean to see it happen. You create the most amount of cap space, bring back useful players that aren't costing the sun, the moon, the stars. I like it. Randall says, Carroll with the Sony Dishman. That's right. That's right. The big fuzzy headphones, plastic right up to the top. You know, Randall. You know it. Megan says, Armstead's the one player I want the Hawks to go for hugely, but I so doubt we'll get him. Yeah, I don't think we will either, Megan. I think some of their team's going to swoop in there and just throw him the mother load, and we're not going to be willing to go that high. Amari Taylor, I don't want Diggs back. I agree with you. We should draft a new safety. Yeah, Amari, I sit pretty resoundly on this stand. I can't be moved off of it, really. Somebody can maybe convince me if it was low enough and they had like some weird thing where they're backloading the contract or something. But even then, I would still say I don't want to really see it. As I go back to and say, there's 32 NFL teams out there, right? You have 31 other NFL teams aside from the Seattle Seahawks. There's not one team in the NFL of the 31 teams paying both safeties top of the market money at the same time. In fact, look at the teams across the nation. Look at the leagues across the league. Teams across the league. They're going in the opposite direction of paying safeties. Say nothing of paying both safeties. They're moving away from paying safeties at all. So outside those few special guys, hell, isn't even Minka Fitzpatrick still chasing his deal in Pittsburgh? Wasn't he balling out for them a couple of years ago? It is what it is. The market dictates it. It is what it is. Jacob Kessinger says, with a $5 donation, says, Brando, are you a hopeless romantic? Thank you for the $5 donation, Jacob. I guess. I'm probably more, once you get into your mid-40s and you're not dating anymore and you're out of the realm, you get into more of the embittered state of things outside of it. You're a hopeless romantic when you're in your 20s and 30s and you can't make it. When you get to 40s, you're just sad. It gets a little hard to lean into that. It's like, well, just if I can find the one. Yeah, really? Really, old man? Just keep waiting. She'll be wrong. I don't know, though. I don't know if anybody would describe me as a hopeless romantic, or who knows me. I think they would probably say I'm pretty dead inside. I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't have a good answer for that one. Usually got some good answers, but I don't know. Yeah, probably actually. Probably. My fun fact is my book on, yeah, I got a book. Yeah, maybe. Megan says, good call on Cortez. Forgot all about him. Can't forget about Tez, but understandable why you'd forget. He was ruling at a time when the empire was going through its dark ages. The plague was sweeping the land. People were bringing out their cart, bring out the dead. Bang out, shut dead, throwing the dead on the cart. So, nobody knew he was as great as he was at the time. Amari says, you think Kyler Gordon will fit with us? And he's from Washington, and his high school is like 15 minutes from Seattle's home field. Kyler, yes, on all accounts with that, Amari. Kyler fits into like that mold of cornerback I was talking about with Seattle, right? Where, somebody was asking about Roger McCreary, and I'm saying, hey, yeah, Roger's not... He's not on point of this. It might have been you asking. I'm sorry, so I'm off on that. But Kyler's different, right? Roger's 5'11". Kyler's going to be 6 foot. I think Kyler's going to test out to have 33 or nearly 33-inch long arms. He does have a zone background rather than Roger's man-on-man background. He can turn and burn with the best of them. His kick bail technique, his kick bail acceleration is as good as you'll find in this class. Elite athlete. He's maybe missing a little top-end speed, but that's not necessarily an absolute requirement in a zone-based scheme. Great hips. Him and Duffy were neck and neck. Just really good. He's kind of got a bigger upper chest, really bigger, wider upper chest than you usually see on cornerbacks. But, other than the fact he probably doesn't like to tackle very much, everything else about him I liked. So, I easily could see him sliding into Seattle's deal, but that'd be the only thing that could potentially maybe keep him a little bit out of whack on that, is his tackling, because they do want their corners to tackle here. They do. Washington Fistquest has been a member for 5 months. Thank you, Washington Fistquest. He says, not dating. Hawks Nest is a 6,000 way fling. That's right. That's right, man. That's right. I don't ever have to commit. I got 6,000 newbies all the time. Megan says, way to go, B. You now destroyed Man in the Mirror, which is one of my all-time favorite songs for the rest of time. Laughing out loud. Just Carroll in the mirror, just doing his old man grooves, right? Just doing his old man moves because everything's a little stiff, I'm looking at the. He's just doing little. No, he's just making the noises because he's got the headphones in, and they're jacked up because he can't hear. So he's got the volume up. Megan with a $5 donation. Thank you, Megan. Says, not true, B. I'm mid-40s, but still believe in romance, even after my parents divorced 1 week after my 9th birthday. Oh, well, mine made it I think mine made it 10 months after I was born. So it is rough, though, when you're young on that respect of things. It is tough. Yeah, I'm not, there's still romance. There is. I'm just, I've been out for a while in this respect of things. So I've just been I head down working for a long time. I haven't even really thought about it much, but I've definitely had my share of romance in the past. But, sometimes you need your little time away to recharge the batteries a little bit. Charles with a $5 donation. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate you. He says, freaking Brando. I know you like Great Expectations for other reasons than the Gwyneth Paltrow water fountain scene, but boy, did she make me feel things. Yeah, she was, I didn't mind when I was a younger man looking at Gwyneth Paltrow. I definitely liked, it's not, I don't have a type, but nothing wrong with a young Gwyneth. I'll say that. Nothing wrong with a young Gwyneth. And she was probably a little bit of a part of it. Part of it's the character, like you have the character want for something they can't have kind of thing, and the way it goes around with that, and it had sort of a real life even ending the way it wasn't the beautiful, and the sunset comes down and they ride off. There was a bit of that, but it was with a little bit of a nuance you don't see in romance stuff. And I just liked the whole nature of it. It was good. It's the whole nature. Corey Coleman with a $10 donation. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate you. Says, hey, B, heard Pete say they are prioritizing pass rush. I think Winfrey or Kingsley Engabare at 41 at the 41st pick. Have you looked at either of them yet? Thank you, brother. Corey, thank you for the $10 donation. You're awesome for doing so on that. Let me give you my notes on Winfrey. I have Ingberry is on my next list, so he's like my next edge guy to go look at. I intend to look at him. I get the impression I'm probably going to be putting him somewhere in the second round based on what I'm hearing about him, but I haven't looked at him yet, so I can't speak for certain. Yes, Perry and Winfrey is a great player. Would be a good pick to take in the second round. His patented move is a hand swipe to get skinny. Part of this is because he's playing at the one tech, and so he's trying to split between the double team that he's constantly engaged in. The bottom line on him, a guy I think that had 5 tackles and 2 sacks in the Senior Bowl, is that you want to move him to the 3 tech. Oklahoma played him at the 1 tech out of necessity because he's a real big guy. So even though he moves really well, and he's quick off the snap, they still stuck him at the 1 tech because they needed that. Maybe didn't have it on their roster. So what you're doing with him is you've got to really project him out and go, okay, he's been played out of position for all this college time, but once we put him into his natural position, once he's getting one-on-one opportunities, he's really going to flourish. He's really going to go out there and eat. And I can see why you would think that, because you see the skill there. You see that the guys this big don't usually move that quick. Don't play with that kind of ferocity at the position. He's not really refined. He's not like Wyatt is, who's absolutely a technician at things, but the physical ability is there with him. The size is there with him. And those are things you can't coach up or teach. You got those or you don't. I do think he's a little similar to Levi Onuwazuruki from the University of Washington last year. They both played in the same way, where they're both put as a 1 tech, and you're going, okay, they're basically coming off the snap and trying to be a bowling ball to the lineman pins that are across for them. What happens when now I ask him to just beat one guy up heads up? And at least at the Senior Bowl, he did it really, really well. Again, you're taking him in the second round. I think I'm going to like that. But I will let you know, Corey, on Kingsley Ingberry. I will have a breakdown for you on the next stream for him, 100% for sure. So I'll be taking a look at him. But I love what I see out of Winfrey, and I do think he will be available there in the second round. JP Hink says, would you post June 1st cap losses, 35-point cut, Bobby, 16.6, Dunlap, Carson, Myers, Barton, about 1 million, and Amadi at 2.5, about 65, not restructuring Russ's contract. Would you plus or minus any? So I would cut Bobby JP. I don't think, is Dunlap 5, if Dunlap's 5-1 post June 1st, I'm still probably going to ride with Dunlap, even though that may be the case after June 1st. I'm out on Carson. I'm out on Myers. I keep Barton for depth. You didn't have LJ Collier on there. You do save money by releasing him as well. I would release LJ Collier. I would probably wait on Ugo Amadi of releasing him until I have a replacement at the slot corner position. And there are replacements in free agency. So if I find that at that point, then I'm looking for a replacement, JP. That's one of those low-key needs of the team that not a lot of people are talking about, is how bad the play was at slot corner last year and how much of a need of improvement we need there at that position. So if we find the improvement, I'll move on from him, but otherwise I would still probably keep on the roster at that point for depth if you're trying to just draft a slot guy to compete with him, let's say, or have Marquise Blair come back and compete with him. So all those guys for the most part, maybe Dunlap's the only one Dunlap and Barton would be my only ones. And I would add to your list I'd add to your list too, JP. So I would add to your list. I don't think they'll get rid of Ben Semeoa, but I'd add him to your list. And then I would add, oh my God, there was one other guy I was going to add to your list. I can't think of him. He'll come to me later. It will come to me later. June 32nd. Hey, B, out of the players we already have, who do you think is going to have a breakout year next year? Of the players we already have, who will have a breakout year next year? I do think Darrell Taylor probably clicks in and gets into the double-digit range as far as sacks. I think that this team moves Jordan Brooks to the middle linebacker position this next offseason one way or another, even if it's just doing a lot of snaps from the 3-4 defense, and I think he looks really good in that realm of things. I'm trying to think about who else I think that'll go forward, and I don't really have a lot of other guys that I've got right now on my list of going forward. I mean, I would tell you, like Rashad Penny, I think could keep up what he did, but I'm still not there on Eskridge. I'm still not there, and nobody on the line right now, even Curran doesn't have me as. I just don't see breakout in him. So kind of that'd be probably it. I think that they use Adams right. That could be your breakout guy if he's put back in a position to succeed, because the book and narrative is on him now is from Seahawks fans is oh, he's burnt, oh, he wasn't that good to begin with, oh, he can't cover, the whole stuff that comes out about that thing that's just incorrect. So he could be a guy to do it, but there's not a lot. I'll tell you that. It's not a lot. Brian Roberts, thoughts on Bobby Wagner? Do we bring him back to the team at same or less? I think the way this will end up shaking out with Bobby Wagner is as follows. The team will renegotiate with him. He will renegotiate back with them. They will cut down his cap hit probably from $20 million to $10 million is where it will sit. That's still going to be a little too expensive for my taste, but it'll be what it's going to be at that point, Brian, it'll get the deal done at least at that point. Randall says, I think I let Gerald Everett walk between the free agent pool and the draft. I go another route. I'm okay with that too, Randall. He did cost a little bit of money this year, and it would seemingly cost about the same to bring him back, which I don't know if that's the way to use the resources, is to keep spending 1 year $6 million, 1 year $7 million on tight ends. It's not getting us a lot of return back for going that route of things. Brian O'Connor, after Pete said we're not going to trade Russell Wilson, he said this is the time of year things like that. This is the time of year things like that. I talked about blah, blah, blah. Did you see Ian Rapport's comment on that? He said, this is the time of the year things like that come up. I didn't see Ian Rapport's comments, Brian, no. I did hear Pete talk about it, but I didn't see what Ian had to say on it. Alexander Wheeler says, have you looked into Tariq Woolen at all? Yep. So with Woolen, I just did a breakdown a second ago, so I'm just going to spin through this quick because I just talked about him. Patented move is draping the receiver at the moment of truth. He's a stout zone-based corner with good game speed. He's good at pressing, and he's overall a solid tackler when he's not taking bad angles, but he does have a tendency to take bad angles to the ball. He is capable of delivering quite a blow at the corner position. He can come up and he can hit a running back. He can bust off of a bubble screen and come lay a lick. The ball skills aren't there. He does not track the ball at all. He is a moment of truth type cat. So at the moment of truth, he's going to try to maul the receiver. I now have permission to lay my hands on him because the ball has come in. He's one of those kind of guys in that realm of things. He is big, 6'3". He's fast. He's played in zone-based corner, fits the mold for what a Seahawks look for in a cornerback. I expect him to have 33-inch long or longer arms when he's measured here. So he absolutely would be a target. I do see him probably in the range of like a 4th-round point where I'd see him sit. I wouldn't want to go up higher than that. Not in a draft like this that's so deep with large zone-based corners that fit the Seattle Seahawks mold. Brian Roberts is Jason Myers' contract up. No, Brian, it's not, but he is due $4 million. You can save $4 million by moving off from him this year. He's going into the last year of his deal. So basically nearly all of the bonus money has moved off the books on him, what little bit you had given him because he's a kicker. So it's all basically base salary that's on the books, which $4 million is a very good football player you go out there and get with that money. Randall says Dickinson had those bad knees. He did. Landon did have a couple ACL tears in his college time. And yeah, Randall, I'm with you. Draft a kicker in the 5th or 6th and say bye-bye to Mr. Myers. Let's go that route with it. Michael YT says, fun fact, Russ is the 3rd all-time quarterback with 100-yard rush games with 4, while Vic is 1st with 10. Oh, I didn't know that. That is a fun fact. JP Hicks, they say Fournette may get $6.1 million, 2 years for, say, $11 million. I think when it comes to anybody making any kind of projections with what the contracts are going to be, there are positions that you can get a little more accurate on than others. The running back one, to me, is a little bit of a tough one to gauge and measure. So 2 years ago, Leonard Fournette was waived by the Jaguars at the end of training camp at any team in the league. Any of the 32 teams in the league could have gotten Fournette that year on a 1-year deal, non-guaranteed, for $4 million. Now, 2 years later, 2 years older as a running back, which is supposed to devalue your state of things, not putting up anything like 1,000-yard seasons with Tampa Bay, being solid but not great. He's now worth $2 million more per year. I'm not saying it's not possible, JP. I'm thinking of this stuff out loud as much as I'm saying. And when I come to that, I don't think he's worth that. I think he could probably sign a 1-year, $4 million deal or a 2-year, $8 million deal, but I don't think he's making $6 a year even on just a 2-year deal. I don't see a team plucking down that kind of money when nobody was biting not 2 years ago on a younger cat. But $4 million, I could see that. Michael YT, Mason Dale, if Daxton Hill, defensive back from Michigan, falls out of the 1st round, which very well could happen, he could be an ideal replacement for Diggs. You're going to have to talk me into Daxton, Mason. You're going to have to talk me into Daxton. To me, he seems like a primary slot guy. People have him saying he can do safety. I didn't see a lot of greatness on that. Everyone says he's going to be explosive and a guy could blow up the combine. Doesn't look that twitchy or explosive to me on tape. He's good. He's all right. But I was not really good tackler. Good at reading eyes in zone, good at playing zone. He's a real football player type guy, right? But he's one of those guys in this draft that people are really hyped on that I don't understand, that I don't get. And there's not a lot of those guys. Most of the guys, even if you don't agree with assessments, you can I don't agree, but I can understand why you have him vaulted up so high. With Daxton Hill, he's one of those guys I watch the tape and I go, I don't get it. Somebody walk me through that one. But he's got a lot of backers, a lot of people that love him. I just can't personally figure it out with him. Some of those guys, some prospects I just miss on. I just can't, for whatever reason, I just can't quite get my head around what they are and what they'll be. I just don't see the star power with him or what drives him to be a 2nd-round pick. Dead Center says, can we draft Dylan Parham at center? Yeah, for sure. I've got him currently in the 3rd round. He's my 3rd best center of 3 centers in the 3rd round, 3-3-3. What do I got with Parham? Parham's an interesting cat. If I can find him here. Oh, we got to go to center. I got to figure out a way to get through this quicker with these things. And of course, I don't have center set. It's awesome. Awesome. Parham's definitely got little limitations to his game, but he's also got some good sides to him as well. And I'm looking for my notes here on him. Through these guys, got to have your notes. He's an undersized player who didn't play center in college, but projects there at the NFL level due to his limited size. He's got a thickly built base with great hand punch. He just struggles to hold up after that first initial strike, so he can really lay a jolt, but then the defender gets free from him really quickly. He does get overwhelmed by larger players. He does a good job of anchoring his base down, even as he's getting the worst end of it from a defensive player. So just because you have him beat, just because you have him backed up as a bull rush, he can still kind of keep his feet planted and slow you down a bit on it. It's not just a Joey Hunt, turnstile type situation going on. He is an upper level mover in space with good feet in pass pro to mirror well. So if you're looking for the mobile offensive lineman center type, this guy would give it to you. Here's my kind of bottom line on him. I said, give this guy a running back like Rashad Penny. They can hit the hole fast and they would make a great pairing. His quickness off the snap and initial punch allow him to initially always win. He doesn't get completely beat after this point, just kind of slowly bled dry as he's being walked backwards. Only has a future at center. He'd get thrashed at guard. So a guy played out of the position there, but would be good, I think, as you move forward with him. But I like Parham's game quite a bit, dead center. I do, especially as a zone fit here. Randall says, who needs to either draft a quarterback or look towards drafting a quarterback? Steelers, Panthers, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Denver, Washington football team, maybe Atlanta and Minnesota. I don't think Atlanta's going to be in on that. I don't think they'll be on it. I think they're going for it this year, so they're going to try to stack their team. Minnesota's going to be dependent upon whether or not they move Kirk Cousins or not. And there's no guarantee that he's necessarily going to get moved. But yeah, you basically covered all the teams that are out there. I think the Browns are low-key looking. If something came up for the Browns, they would jump. Mason Dale, would we get a compensatory pick from Quandre Diggs? The only way you're going to get a compensatory pick from Quandre Diggs is if you don't sign any free agents in return. And with having $40, $50 million to spend this offseason, they're going to sign some free agents, which would offset anything you lose out the door. So chances are we are probably not going to get a compensatory pick. The only way you could do it is if you went out there and made trades to add salary to the books as opposed to free agents, in which case you don't have the negative marker there that you have just the plus side of Diggs' loss on the books, not the negative of you bringing on free agents. And so then you would probably pull in like a 4th rounder. Alexander Matthews says 16-0. Here we come. I love it, Alexander. Randall McDaniel says, speaking of Tunsil, would you trade this year's 2 and next year's 1 for him? If not, what would you put together in a package? I wouldn't probably push anything past like a 2 this year for Tunsil. I'll give you a 2 this year and like a 4th or 5th next year. But he's not a top 5 left tackle in the sport. He's like a top 7 or 8 left tackle in the sport. And that's just where he sits. He's good. He'd be helpful. He'd be useful. I'm willing to give some cost, but I ain't giving you a 1st-round pick for Tunsil at this point. I have heard maybe he's on the trade market. I don't know why the Texans are looking at him, and maybe they're just trying to get what assets they can because Bill O'Brien left the cupboard so empty, but odd that they'd be trying to move off from him. Everyone on the Texans is on the trade block, says Randall. It's probably true. Watch your quest. Mac Strong for Ring of Honor. See what Mac can do for you. And I love it. He should get there at some point. Though if he gets there, then you probably got to put Joe Nash there, don't you? I mean, and does not maybe Joe Nash deserve to be there before Max Strong, being that he came before him? Just saying. If we're putting the bar there, that's where the bar's at. Mason Dale, as long as our first pick doesn't get injured in the first 24 hours after getting drafted, I think it's a win. Well, we got to wait all the way till minicamp, right, Mason? Sometimes they just walk into minicamp with injuries too. Mysterious injuries. I blame jet skis. Randomly, Daniel Davis-Mills could be a steal for them. I think he'll be okay. He's always going to be limited by that giraffe neck. Giraffe neck is a death knell for quarterbacks for whatever reason. Yeah, he could be okay. Davis would be all right. I didn't hate him coming out. You know, he's got some tools to him. He looked good against us on the first couple of drives before it kind of all fell apart. Randall says around next week the free agent rumors will be a swirling. Oh yes, they will be. Samuel Gutierrez, how many times are we trading down for more picks? I think that's going to be hard to trade down this year, Samuel, because I think the teams understand where the value is of this draft. So if you understand that the greatest value of this draft, if you're a general manager, is in the second, third round, and John Schneider says to you, we want to trade back in our second round and get to the midpoint of second round, give us a third rounder to do so, even a late third rounder to do so. Well, in prior years, you might be able to swing that deal. This year, I don't think you're going to get a general manager biting because now they're getting one less pick in that prime spot where all the players are basically of similar talent level. And I don't think that you're going to get as many guys biting that lure. The way they used to do it too is they used to be in the back end of the first round and trade out of the first round or to the back to the first, near the end of the first round, and they'd find that team looking for the guy who's going to go get this year's Sam Howell or Ritter or Pickett at the end of the first round. And that's how they would move back out a lot of ways. But it's a different story once you're into that second round place of things. NM74801 says, if Russ would stop throwing deep on third and short, we might double our time of possession. Indeed, NMNEN, hard name to pronounce there, buddy. I agree, man. Yeah, we got to get better in our third down efficiency. And Russ stands at the head of the line of that. He's got to be better in that realm. He's got to be better about adopting the scheme and being on time with that. Hopefully year two, we start to see more of that. But if he doesn't, this offense won't go anywhere. It will continue to be stilted or Jekyll and Hyde, up and down, inconsistent. The road to consistency is the conversion of thirds down and at a much higher rate than we've been doing in recent years. JP says free agency he'd like would be 2 years, $10 million for Fournette. I could go for that. Jensen, 2 years, $20 million. He's going to cost more than that, JP. I think he gets a 3 or 4 year deal. I'm good with the Disley contract, 2 years, $3 million. Schultz, I got a hard time pulling the trigger on him with that. I do. Armstead, yeah. So Armstead's going to be like a $100 million deal, JP. Armstead's going to make like $90 million, $100 million. Ogbah's going to probably get over Ogbah's going to make $12 million per year. I'm good with your penny. I can't pay Diggs. I can't pay a kicker anymore, JP. We've been paying kickers in recent past years and it hasn't paid off. DJ Jones. So I'd say JP, I'm yes on Fournette. Jensen's going to cost more. Armstead's going to cost incredibly more than you posted in there. They're going to be way more. I'm yes on Disley. I'm no on Schultz. I'd rather go for O.J. Howard or David Njoku, who will be at a lesser cost, but just as talented, if not more talented than Schultz. Ogbah, I love as you targeting him. He's a good player, but I think he's going to cost in the realm of like a 4 year, $40 million deal. I don't think he's going to take a short-time contract. I'm okay with the penny. Even if you sign Fournette, I am okay with bringing Penny on in addition. I can't pay two safeties top of the market money. Diggs is going to get more than a 2 year deal. And I can't pay a kicker anymore. You know, we paid top of the market money to Hauschka. We paid top of the market money to Jason Myers. It's not gotten us any returns on it. Let's learn our lessons and not do that anymore. And G.J. Jones, I can't do G.J. Jones. I want to go bigger than that. I want to go bigger and better than that at the defensive tackle position. Great suggestions, though. JP says be able to do the 3-4, several of them. Yeah, you would. That would open that up a bit more. And DJ helps you in that realm. I'll give you that with that. Charles says the Great Expectations was back when Gwyneth Paltrow was fire. Yeah, that was back when she wasn't a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, selling vagina candles and stuff. Megan says, wow, B, Great Expectations, color me stunned. Well, I got some surprises from time to time, Megan. Randall says, I could see Carroll micro dosing psilocybin. I could see that. Randall says, assuming we walk away from Diggs, give me a free agent or two that we can sign to replace. Where would you address in the draft? Round 3 or 4? Get stuff in the draft, Randall. Free agents are not deep in this draft. Free safeties aren't deep in this draft. I might take a look at a guy like Veron McKinley in the 4th round to come in and compete with Marquise Blair. If they wanted to go up in the 2nd round, a guy that'd be available who I like a lot is Kirby Joseph out of Illinois. I think that he would be an interesting cat to take a look at from a free agent standpoint. To me, Jason McCourty makes a lot of sense because it's like a 1-year deal and you're not a long-range commitment, and then you can still have a guy that comes in with Marquise Blair to kind of compete, and he's just a good veteran presence, still played well last year. The other guy would be Anthony Harris of the Eagles that's out there, Randy. Those would be my 2 free safety possibilities. I think Harris is going to not make what Diggs made, still make something, but not quite what Diggs is making. And that might make a smarter role. But I would more lean away from signing a guy really in free agency outside of McCourty, and I'd lean more to the 4th round range, 3rd or 4th round range. Randall says Kyler Gordon's going to blow up the combine, 43-inch vert. How's he comped to another Husky, Byron Murphy, with the Cards? Some people have made some comparisons with that. I don't see the same way, Randall, myself with it. To me, he's got a little more of an extra gear that Murphy didn't have, which is why Murphy's getting pushed into the slot with the Cardinals. I think the tackling thing is a question with him, but from a speed and athleticism standpoint, he's got all the things you would desire in a quarterback, and he's 6 foot tall. Size, length, explosion, speed, understands the technique of the zone scheme. The thing that maybe pushes him back, Randall, which could put Trent McDuffie back in the same realm, right, is if you have man-based schemes that look at him and say, I don't see a guy that can do zone, or I don't see a guy that can do man. I see a guy who can only do zone. For us, that doesn't matter as much, or it hasn't in the recent past. We're not as we're not as obsessed with those type of things. If you do zone, that's fine. That's all we want. That's all we ask. So, Sean Proper says, I'm okay with letting Diggs walk, draft a safety, and grab a bet on a 1-year prove-it deal. Bingo. Bingo, Sean. I am 100% in the same realm. Keith Starr, Justin Reed, Malik Hooker, Ronnie Harrison. Yeah, you go a lot. I like Malik Hooker out of that group. So I'm a Malik Hooker guy myself with that, but I'm not going to get picky. And I think you can find the 1-year veteran guy to get it done. And especially if you deal with the front 4 and you get the pass rush really rolling, it's not as much of a worrisome addressment, let's say. Amari Taylor, do you think we should draft? Do you think we should get Brian Robinson as our running back 2 for this year's draft? All depends on where you get him at, Amari. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not a real huge fan of Robinson. He's to me just, I've going back to watching him last year, just hasn't done a ton for me on tape. If you're talking about 4th round, 5th round on him, sure. I mean, I think he helps. He could definitely be a running back 2 in that thing. And I think he comes in and gives you a couple carries and he's at least useful as a back. Just doesn't have a lot of wow quotient to me. But he's fine, He's kind of in that collection of running backs in that 4th. There'll be a ton of about 15 guys. They're all kind of right up into that end of the 3rd round to the middle of the 5th range of things. Keldon, I get here and Megan and Charles are at it. Shocker. Randall says, I saw an article where it was suggested we play Eskridge in the backfield, especially on third down. First thing I thought of was injured reserve. Yeah, he can't stay healthy just playing receiver. How is he going to do it getting the hell banged out of him out of the running back position? Yeah, I think the same thing. It's the thing everyone's going to do. It's the lazy approach to things. Everybody sees Deebo Samuel and they're like, oh, so you can take running back, you can take receivers now and put them in the running back position. There's some select guys you can do with, but it shouldn't be thought of as some commonplace thing that is done now. And let's not forget as well that part of the reason why the Niners moved Deebo Samuel to running back at the high rate that they put him at was because that they didn't trust their running back room. Trey Sermon couldn't get on the football field. They used Elijah Mitchell for every carry he had, and they didn't have a lot else behind. So it was a little bit by necessity that they threw him out there, not by them wanting to have their best wide receiver out there taking carries from the running back position. So, you can't do that with Eskridge now. Megan says, how can they knock Bobby's cap from $20 million to $10 million? You lower down his base amount, Megan. So you have your two parts make up a player's cap hit every year. What he's got as far as on the books for money owed, bonus money owed on that given year, and then the base salary. You put those two together, that gives you the total salary. So if you go to Bobby and you say, Bobby, we paid you this bonus money already, that is what it is. We can't take that away or ask for that back, and we wouldn't. But what we can do is say we're going to take your base down from $15 million to $7 million. So that's the easy way of doing it. That's the quick way of doing it. Randall says, honestly, how much money would you pay Bobby? I don't want anything more than $6 million a year. Virtually zero impact plays, forced turnovers, or TFLs since re-signing his deal. Liability in coverage. Probably that's about where I would land as well, Randall. I would be hard pressed to go past 6, personally. I didn't think they're going to land at 10, but it should be less than that for the reasons that you bring up. Randall says, trying to convince my son to play checkers. He's more interested in Minecraft. Yeah, these games are addicting as hell now, They're as addicting as hell. Charles Riley with another $5 donation. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it as ever, my man. He says, has there ever been a more beautiful woman on earth than Raquel Welch? She's up there. She's up there, man. I mean, there's been a couple close, but I mean, she's got to be one of the first ones you mentioned, right, Randall? We're talking about Mount Rushmore of hotness. I think you got to include her. Bud Inlet says Jalen Petrie is better than Daxton Hill. Bud, I'm with you, man. I'm legit with you. I think we might be riding alone on these horses by ourselves a bit, but I like Jalen's game better than Daxton. He to me he pops off the tape more than Daxton does. Sean says CBS projected landing spots for top 25 free agents. They have Seattle signing Randy Gregory, 3 years, $40 million. Ugh. Zach Ertz, 2 years, $18 million. Well, that's something they've done in the past, so I could see him doing that again. Also, DJ Reed to the Niners. Well, now they're just being morons, aren't they? I mean, if the 49ers love DJ Reed so much, why'd they let him go in the first place? I don't see that happening. I would not be a fan of Randy Gregory at 3 years and $40 million. CBS is smoking some crack. Corey Coleman, Engaberry is pretty good pass rusher, but I think he has potential as a strong side linebacker in a 3-4 defense. I'll take a look at him. I'm kind of interested to check him out, Corey. I've been meaning to get to him. One of those guys, just your list gets longer and longer, and you just don't get to him, but I do want to get to him because I think he could be a Seahawk target based on what I'm hearing. Keldon, well, you see, Megan, there was this guy named Jerry. Randall McDaniel says, if I'm Schneider and someone falls, I may look to trade into the end of round 1, get out a guy in 5 years of club control. If market is suppressed, then it won't take much to move up. True, it's going to be easier to move up than it has been in the past. Though I think it's going to be hard for Schneider, Randall, and when he's having to trade up into the late into the first round, he's going to have to give up future draft capital to do so. It might sting a little bit for him to do so, coming on the heels of having 2 years now where he's been down a first-round pick, especially this year where you would have had essentially almost a top 10 pick. Might be hard for him to pull that trigger this year because of that. Mason Dale says the real question with Armstead is what he values more, hitting one last jackpot or winning championships. That's true. It could factor in there, Mason. I do say that it's hard from the Seattle standpoint to come at this and say, yeah, we're going to bring you championships. And he goes, oh yeah, cellar dwellers? Is that what you're going to do? The team that came in 4th place in the toughest division in football? And it's not exactly, it's kind of a simplistic way of looking at it, of course, but it's not wrong. It's not inaccurate either. But that hard to make that. It's easier if you're a team that's been a division winner, or you won the division last year, to say something like that versus kind of where we sit with it a little bit. Washington Visquest says, I heard a podcaster theorize Cam Chancellor could be a sleeper for the Ring of Honor. He'd be the face for the whole Legion of Boom. Great guy, and he didn't go crazy or call the fan base entitled unaccountable. Thoughts? Initially, when I was reading the first part of it, I was like, no, but you make sense. That podcaster made sense in their logic of how it's not just happening in the vacuum of Cam Chancellor being worthy of the Ring of Honor, but also factoring in, do they want to honor that era, but understanding all of them went so far off the rails for the most part that he's the last guy kind of standing that you can bring in to appreciate that era in that way. That makes sense. And it could be. It could be. I'm okay with putting him in the Ring of Honor. You can't retire his number though, I would say. Big Baller Brian says, where's Tariq Woolen on the top 50? Hard for me to put a corner that can't track the ball and has zero ball skills really in my top 50. Not a bad player. Not a bad player. Certainly should be picked high in this upcoming draft. But if you're a cornerback that doesn't have ball skills, I'm going to knock you down the list a bit. Mason Dale says, after the press conference, it sounds like we'll be lucky to get one new starter on offense. Well, remember, Mason, this is like war right now. This is a lot of smoke and mirror, cloak and daggers, double talk out one side of the mouth, talk out the other side of the mouth. They're not going to give you all the truth because there's negotiations and there's background machinations going on at all times. I think we just got to take everything a little bit of grain of salt and remain patient because I think that they will be making some moves that are going to be pretty aggressive this offseason. Mason Dale says, I've only seen a few highlight tapes, but Breece Hall looks special. He's my running back number 1 by a mile. No deficiencies to his game really that I can see. Maybe not amazing in pass protection, but willing in pass protection. But great burst. He has the thing you probably want most in running backs, which is the first 5 to 7 yards. They're really fast. Not just quick out the first step or two, but for 7 yards, there is a noticeable burst from when they get the football. And Breece Hall has that. In the Deck World, I like the direction we have in mind on defense, and I like the plan we seem to have on offense. I want to be aggressive, but I really don't know how you do that all in one off season. You can get it done. It does require you to borrow against the future to do so, which is something John Schneider indicated today that he was not as willing to do. So it does take a little bit of a spirit willing to go in that direction to accomplish that. But you can get it all done, Ethan. It's going to take you sacrificing future years. Will they or won't they? I hope they do. Ethan says the 3-4 hybrid approach is good, and I'm a fan, but that adds quite a bit of money that we weren't expecting previously. That was the downside of something I was mentioning with that, Ethan, is that it was good to hear that they're going to go to more of an aggressive-based defense, more of attack-based defense. You're going to have to bring in the dogs to get that done. And that's going to require an investment that you maybe thought you were going to put more on the offensive side of the ball, whereas now maybe not as much on the offensive side of the ball, so you can get this thing that Coach Carroll is going to want to unveil it at its best. He's not going to want to adopt the scheme and half sell the roster on board to make it work. And that's going to lead to them pushing more to the defensive side of the ball, I think. It is what it is with that. Watching FistQuest, do you have some technique to almost never say or I have a YouTube channel, and that's such a hard habit to kick. I definitely do say my share of them, you know, and now that you probably said that, I'm going to start saying all the time. I don't know. It's, see, I started, I say my share of ums. It's hard to not do it. When you got to speak constantly and you're in a one-man band, you're going to have your share of speaking kind of blah, blah, blah. I think taking your time, take a breath every once in a while. I do this too often where I know sometimes I'll speak without taking a breath. And that actually is where you're going to lead to ums because you're thinking you got to constantly put a thought out there, which you don't. And take a second and think about it. Let a statement land for a second while you breathe, you know. But again, I'm not beautiful. I'm maybe okay with it, but I'm still with you on it. It's hard not to. Randall says, I asked the other night but fell asleep. Can you talk about the middle linebackers in a 3-4? Are they interchangeable, left and right? Different traits? Ideally, of these three, who are the two? Bobby, Barton, and Brooks. I think, all right, we'll go through kind of step by step on that, Randall. There's not really a difference between inside middle linebackers in a 3-4 scheme. They're both going to be doing basically the same things overall at the end of the day. They do tend to be a little bit bigger middle linebackers, which both Bobby and Brooks, I don't know if I have them necessarily as bigger linebackers per se. And you can get away with going a little undersized. I mean, Pittsburgh drafted a inside middle linebacker and I think the top 5 picks just 2 years ago. So there's no hardened rule on this in the 3-4 with those linebackers. They are interchangeable, I would say. Ideally, I guess you would have, it would be Barton and Brooks, because then you're moving off of the $16.6 million of Bobby, and you're not even, only halving that by restructuring him at that point. So the better move is to go with those two, because you're now lightening the load on that position from a salary standpoint to put it in other places like the defensive line. All three would do it in about the same realm equally, I think. I would tend to say that the one nice thing that you get a little bit of, Randall, is because there's those two middle linebackers in the middle of the field now, when those guys drop into a zone coverage, there's now almost a little bit of a half as much space for them to have to cover, as opposed to the one middle linebacker, really taking everything that comes between the hashes. So there's a little bit of a relief there, I think, in coverage, which could both help Bobby and Jordan in that respect of things. Mason Dale, I think the only reasonable left tackle we can draft and start week 1 is Abraham Lucas. I like Kellen Diesch from ASU as a developmental guy, but we kind of already have one in stone, Forsythe. Yeah, that's probably about the only guy you could bring in. I think Mason, you could bring in, I think Daniel Lele would be a better right tackle than what you got in Curhan right now if you brought him in the second round. I think if you got Nicholas Fertitte out of Ohio State, the left tackle there, I think he could come in, and if you moved on from Dwayne Brown, he could, I think, start for you day one. Abraham Lucas is only a right tackle, though, Mason. He's not a left tackle. He does move well for size. He does move well for a right tackle, but he would be exposed out on the left side. He can't play left tackle, no way. But for the Ohio State kid could come in, and that might be right where he lands. Mac Morrow, are you guys actively looking to trade DK? No, Mac. DK is going to stay here. DK's here now. He's ours. You can't have him. He's ours. He's ours. Like that old Looney Tunes commercial, or the cartoon, where I'm like putting a manhole cover on your head and then jumping up and down on it as I bang you down into the lower realms. He's ours. He's ours. He's ours. You can't have him. And I think, Randall, if you do move on from Bobby, I don't think they would ride with Barton necessarily. Barton would be a depth guy there to be had, but they would definitely, I think, look to draft an inside middle linebacker on top of things at that point, if not sign a guy in free agency. So I don't think Barton would be necessarily the guy, but if you were talking about, if I had to pick two of the three, I'd pick the Barton over Wagner just to try to save that money. But I think they would find another answer outside of Wagner probably in the draft a little bit later on. Charles Riley with a $10 donation. Charles always coming with the 5, 6, 7 donations every stream, and he is amazing for doing so. He says, would a Mount Rushmore of beautiful women and men in respect to Megan Gock-Roger require a voting on this stream? If so, we can't because I won't minimize the spirit of the channel, which is Seahawks. I think there would have to be a vote on that one, Charles. Maybe we'll run it over on the Discord side at some point. On the Discord channel, we'll put up a poll over there at some point. See how it bears out. It sounds like we're having some very good debate on this topic. Megan says, B, I'm a Toastmaster for 15 years standing, and one of the things we look for when people speak in public is ums and uhs. You do very well for one who is not trained for speaking in any ways. Well, I appreciate that. I wish I could point to some sort of training or something, but it must be natural. I will say my dad was a morning radio host, so he couldn't do any of that stuff. It's not in his bag, so maybe I picked up a little bit from him on that realm of things. But I appreciate that, and I'm glad I don't do too many of those. As he was saying that, I felt like I could feel it starting to leak into my mouth. Like I start saying it now, even though I don't normally. Why do I? Hey, Brando. Love what we've heard from Pete and Clint. Even with more blitzing and more man, I would still think that Seattle will run 50% more zone if they want to go after Reed and Jones. I think there's going to be a bit of both on this, to your point on this, I think when they talk about being hybridized and multiple, I think it's to be just that. It's not to be just 3-4 or just to be 4-3. It's to be able to throw all of it at an offense, and that's going to be hard for an offense to prepare for. Yeah, it's tough to find all the guys you need to fill out that scheme. Yeah, it's going to take some time for the players to learn it. But it also makes it tremendously hard. Offensively, you go, what are we playing this week? 3-4. Okay, I know the base principles of attacking at 3-4. But then you go into, well, who are we playing this week? The Hawks. Oh, they're 3-4 and 4-3. I got to kind of keep both plates spinning in my mind of how to attack based on what I'm seeing play in and play out. And what I'm seeing play and play out might very well change from one play to the next. And it gets me excited about it. It's part of where I think you've got to be in the NFL now, where you go beyond getting the best talent on the board, but putting the talent in the best positions to succeed. And you do that by disguising things, by being, as Carroll said today, intricate in your approach. I did numb. Oh, I did it. These are the things I think can help this scheme really take off. And even beyond getting the players in place, just having that element that you've not had for 10 years of being exotic, hard to predict pre-snap what you're going to do versus what you're going to do post-snap. These things I think all build towards the defense being better. DK better not go anywhere, Megan. You're right. DK better stay here. Randall says, I've never signed up for a Toastmaster several times. Always found a reason not to. It's a cool program. Megan says, you should do it. Do it. Oh, thank you, Watch This Quest. You've reminded me that. If you like what you're listening to, please do hit that like button for me. It does help out this channel considerably. I really do appreciate it. And it just helps us grow. You know, we're on the road to 10,000. We're going to get there by you guys hitting that like button. Dead Center, can I hear your center rankings? I'll do you even better than that, Dead Center. Let me flash up my offensive big board for you here, Dead Center. So you can see now this is the early center rankings. I have still more guys to look through. This list is going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger as we go along and get closer to the draft. We're going to have a ton of names. I hope to have, by the time of the draft, my goal is to hopefully have about 225 to maybe even upwards of total guys I've looked at. That's what I'm shooting for. But where I got right now with the centers as it stands is number 1 is Tyler Lindenbaum. Should go in the top 15. Might slide. Love him. Clean prospect. Zone-centric. Great. Alex Lindstrom, Luke Fortner, Dylan Parham. All those are third-round guys to me. They've got some questions, holes to their game, which is why they can't quite vault up into that second-round range of things. But I believe all of them, if I'm not mistaken, would be good fits in a zone. I think all of them fit. I can't remember on Fortner for sure, but I think they were all pretty good movers as well. Fortner, let me double check my Fortner notes. He's a little more limited. So Fortner's a little more limited from an athletic standpoint and quickness standpoint, but Lindstrom and Parham can definitely move off the ball and get to the second level. Fourth round, I've got Zach Tom and then Dawson Deaton. And then Cole Strange, who the Seattle Seahawks have actually met with and talked with. Very good movement game. Love his athletic mobility, quickness in space. He has no strength for his life to hold up at the point of attack, and he's going to get bull rushed to death at the pro level, but he does have some interesting traits to him. And then Nick Ford, I've got below that. So that's how my center rankings kind of sit right now and what round I would take them in. Cole's a good player, but I just wouldn't want to take him in the third, fourth round. I think that'd be a bit high. Megan says, my ear is well trained as you have a few when thinking about not as many as some I've heard. Oh, all right. Nice. Appreciate that. Alexander said, I know I need to stop. I've been smoking since I was 24, 25 years now. Yikes. Woo. Living on the edge. I know it's hard though, man. They say that's the toughest thing to quit. And I wouldn't know, but I bet. I've had friends who've had a hard time with it. I got friends that quit like 10 years ago and they're still chewing the nicotine gum. Ethan says, the way to avoid ums and uhs is to just not say anything after a question is asked. Just quietly think what you want to say. Take some practice. It is. Because you want to always react usually after somebody says something or you got a question to instantly come back and say something. But it does take, usually just taking the pause helps you not get around to just starting to mutter and whatnot. Alexander Matthews says, Brandon, break down free agency in a Fat Albert's voice. It's going to be a good free agency. I don't do a good Fat Albert. The energy and the will is there, but it's not very good when it comes out. I got to look back at some old, look at the old Fat Albert cartoons, get the voice back a little bit. Megan says, B, we need some Cosell. Saw him roast Dean Martin on Celebrity Roast. Funniest thing I've ever seen in a long while. Ladies and gentlemen, we have for you an extravaganza of the athletic quotient of elitism within this world. That's right. We're in Indianapolis, Ohio, looking at the greatest prospects of the land, starting with at the first at the front of the gate, Malik Willis. What an amazing quarterback of short stature, but amazing arm strength. He is able to whip passes along at an impronounceable level, imperceptible to the human eye, an absolutely cantankerous man who yet seems to have an unflappable spirit. It's not good tonight. My Cosell's not great. Who will be the one to run 4.2 seconds in the 40-yard dash and Deion Sanders their way out of the building having earned their money? Let me tell you about this Drake London. Dead center, I wish we would draft a left tackle, but I have a feeling Dwayne Brown is coming back. I think that's going to be the case as well, dead center. There's not a lot of left tackles that are going to be sitting there in the second round when you're coming up. Evan Neal, Charles Cross, Ikem Akawanu, who I'll learn his name eventually. Bernard Raymond, Tyler Smith, all of them will be off the board. Probably Trevor Penning will also be off the board at that point. You might be looking at Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. Let me tell you about this Frenchman and his ability to block. He doesn't just have a hyphenated name, he has a hyphenated game. He's the one guy who's probably going to be there and available for you at that spot, but it's lean after that. And what drives you back around dead center to Dwayne Brown, and I'm with you, I don't necessarily want to see this happen, but it's any port in a storm, right? Storms are blowing, ships getting tossed about, going over wave after wave, and you got yourself a Dwayne Brown port just around the corner of that coast. Now, do you keep on sailing because you want a prettier port? Because the Dwayne Brown port's a little disgusting, right? You got fish guts on the walls, Walruses are just laying all over the place trying to bite people. But it is a storm, and you might go under if you keep going. So what do you do? And I think that does lead them back to Dwayne Brown, unfortunately. Megan says, what the F has happened to your Cosell B? Does he need to walk into par with? He might need a little bit of me here. He's just not good alone. I heard you, Christopher, and you can blow it out your ass. But I'm also 3 hours into the stream. I find once the voice starts to go a tiny bit, Megan, that gets harder to do the impressions. They just start to get brittle, a little brittly. Why? Bobby is one of my favorite players, but I am concerned that if we don't move Brooks to the middle, we can't get a good cover will. Seattle's linebackers have been eaten up in coverage. Agreed. Why? It's as with me in all decisions. It's like the Quandre Diggs thing, right? People sometimes try to simplify arguments or debates down to very base levels of things when it actually requires a lot of detail in how you form your argument or your belief on something. And likewise with Quandre Diggs, it's not just about how good a player he is or how productive he's been. It's also about where he's going. It's about the injury situation. It's about what you've paid into the position. Well, with Bobby, it's not just about Bobby losing a couple steps in his game and not being the player he once was. It's not just about us being attacked at the will position, as you mentioned with Jordan, who gave up over 1,000 yards in coverage this year, which is damn near impossible to do from the linebacker's position. It's also having to do with the cost of Bobby Wagner, the acknowledgement that Jordan Brooks is best suited to go to the middle, and, to your point on that, the need to better address the will to find a guy who can hold up in coverage, because as we move forward in the NFL, every team is going to need that guy who can cover in space, the tight end or the slot receiver. It's hard to find. And I think you got to try to go find an angle for it. Cowboys did this last year, taking a linebacker at LSU who's Jabril Cox, just specialized in being that outside cover linebacker. Worked for them. Why not look to duplicate it? I agree, though. You've got to. There's so many reasons this decision makes sense to go this direction. It's a little bit of a no-brainer not to do so. Alexander Matthews, that's actually a pretty good impression. Well, thank you, Alexander. You are a man of wisdom and grand understanding. One could say you were formed at the top of Olympus by Zeus himself. Ethan Deckworld, hey, Mr. Walken, what do you think about this Carroll guy finally admitting that he's been arrogant with his approach? Let me say, Coach Carroll, great coach. It's really good. That's what he's saying all the time. Like him. He's got some flaws. I don't like to look at him. He's like an attractive man who can't stare at a mirror. I don't know. Just seems that way at times to me now. He's coming around. He's trying to learn. It's better. It's good. He's getting it right. He's going to learn. He's going to learn good. He's going to know what's going on. Come back around. Maybe it's good again. Carroll back to elite status. Defensive tackle. Whoa. He's amazing. Again. Whoever saw it? I didn't. You didn't. No one knew. And now it's here. As good as I got. And Brian Cox did Megan play the original Hannibal Lecter. It's fun to watch and see how he played him with his nuance. Underrated movie, that movie. It's got a couple of people in it, but they did a good interaction. Michael Mann film, Megan. Mason says, next year I hope we get Brooks more involved as a blitzer. That was one of his strengths coming out. I also want to see him as a quarterback spy against Trey Lance. That'd be pretty cool. Megan says, okay, 12's my shoulder's killing and I need to get up from the laptop. And fun as always. We'll catch up with you soon. Rock on Combine. Yeah, Manhunter. It's good film. Have I watched Max Mitchell? Not yet, Dead Center. Not gotten to him yet, but he is on my list to take a look at. So he's one of my next queued up guys. I'm getting into that second, third round territory now where you start to really get the list rounded out. So definitely will be taking a look at him for sure. Washington Visquest with a $2 donation. Thank you, Washington Visquest. So as a heads up, spreadsheet is still, oh, thank you. I spaced that out, didn't I? Left that spreadsheet up for a while. Thank you. Appreciate you for donating to let me know on that Watch This Quest. Yeah, I didn't mean to leave that up. I got to find a way to keep that up over my shoulder where you guys can see it, but I think it's going to be too small on phones to notice. Megan says, agreed, Bede. I refused to watch it after seeing Silence and Hopkins for years, but bit the bullet and saw it recently and wondered why the hell I waited for so long. Brilliant. Yeah, Megan. I think it's a vastly superior film to the one that basically remade it a couple years after that, right? The Ed Norton one that they tried to do, where I think they went to the well like the third time. Mann's caught, to me, the essence of the novel much better. He had a way better feel for just the macabre, the little bit of the goth nature to it within the novel a bit. I thought just the way he tapped into that verse, what Norton's picture did with Hopkins still as the lead on that. But yeah, it's great film. Charles Rather with $5 donation. Thank you, Charles. Says, Brando, Michael Mann makes a great film. Dangerously underrated is Collateral with Tom Cruise. Awesome film. I love Collateral. Collateral very well could be, outside of Heat, might be my second favorite Michael Mann film. So yeah, Michael Mann's, didn't he do The Last of Mohicans too? Wasn't that him? I might be thinking of somebody else on that one. Probably thinking of somebody else. But Michael Mann's great. Not every one of his films hits for me. Some of his stuff can kind of miss when it really misses, but he's got a great visual eye, and he knows how to create kind of a unique kind of mood to his films. So, but Collateral's awesome. And Cruise was great. I love Tom Cruise as a bad guy. Like, he hasn't tapped into that enough, in my opinion. Like, when he's like Les Grossman with Tropic Thunder or Collateral, like, and he's just chewing scenery. Yeah, Cruise is awesome with that stuff. GoX05, I did a PFF mock draft. It was fantastic and unrealistic. I got Devontae Wyatt, Boy Mafe, Jerome Ford, Zamir White, and Tariq Woolen dream scenario. That would be pretty dream scenario as it gets on GoX5. I'd be over the moon if we were able to pull something like that in. That'd be amazing. Charles Riley says Red Dragon had moments, but not as good as the killer in Manhunter. Yeah, and I mean, Ray Fiennes did what he could. But they got that 80s actor that was super creepy. Like, he had the supernaturally just creepy face. He could just walk in the room and he's like 6'5" and already just looked freakish. So he already kind of set you back anyway. There's something with that. And yeah, Red Dragon had a couple moments that were okay. You know, it wasn't like a bad movie, but Manhunter just gets lost a little bit in that shuffle because of it. Megan says Collateral's no patch on Heat, B. Well, Heat's better, so don't make no. I like Heat better. It's a superior film, but Collateral is underrated. Ethan, in my math class, we have these attendance questions, and I had one for today. Would you rather never have access to the internet again, or always be within 2 meters of Nicolas Cage? Ooh. I do the Nicolas Cage. He's going to keep life interesting. You know what I mean? And as like, you get crazy videos of him and stuff and like hear stories, but you don't ever hear him doing like truly, usually nutball stuff where it's like, and then he stabbed a guy, you know, you don't hear that about him. So it's a brilliant question. Megan, Tropic Thunder was brilliant. Took me ages to realize that Grossman was Cruise. Oh, he's awesome in it. I loved it. It's like, Cruise has got to lean into that stuff as he gets older now. It's the way it goes for older actors. Is you're the lead young and you do all the lead roles, and then you get older and then you got to be the bad guy. That's how it rolls. Megan says the best villain aside from Hannibal Lecter is those movies with the disfigured Mason Verger, played by the uncredited Gary Oldman under a ton of makeup. He was good in that. Yeah, he was pretty good in that. Strange movie, the Hannibal one. Kind of an odd flick. But Oldman was really good in it. Not only unrecognizable in the, obviously the prosthetics they had him in, but in his voice he was using. We got a vote for Nick Cage. We got another vote for the internet for Megan. But Megan, then you never see me. You got no Nick Cage, but you never get to see the show anymore. Dead Center showering with Nick Cage. Wait, it's 2 meters. 2 meters is enough for me to be in a shower and have a curtain between me and Nick. Now he's out there singing Elvis songs, which is going to throw me off, but he's outside of the curtain, right? He's outside the curtain. Alexander, awesome film with Edward Norton is a movie called 25th Hour. I've given it a couple tries. I can't quite get it. I don't know if sometimes with me, Spike Lee just doesn't quite get me with some of his techniques in filmmaking, you know? He doesn't land as much with me as he does with others, I feel like. But that's a movie that's really well loved. It is. Megan says, Julianne Moore's Clarice really annoyed me. Yeah, me too. That didn't work for me as a follow-up to, you know, I mean, it just didn't work. It just didn't work to Megan. It was like Ridley Scott. It was made like really, you know, I like the Italy stuff in the movie. I like when Hannibal's like messing with he's got the assassins and then he messes with the detective and then throws the detective out the window like his ancestors had happened to him in the same city. That was pretty cool, but everything outside of it, yeah. He feeds the little kid a brain at the end. It's like, really? You went there? Really? Watching this West says internet. Oh. And Megan says, I'm not saying you would mean not having to put up with Charles Riley B while upsetting not to see you. I could deal without Charles. Charles Riley, the $5 donation says, I'm going to watch Heat tonight, but it'll be hard to endure Pacino's overacting. Oh, he goes full Pacino in that one. Why are you doing? Because she's got a great ass and your head's all the way up it. That's where I got to be, on the edge. Keeps me sharp. I'm over here looking at you, a guy across the table. And I'm thinking to me, I got to put you down. Brother, I'm putting you down. Byron D with the $2 donation. Thank you, Byron. Says, here you go, Brendo. Take a water break or pet your cat. Yeah, she's wanting some pets. She's wanting some pets. Thank you, Byron. she's definitely like, is this over yet? Come on. Love me. Ethan says, oh, you know what I got to do? It was the 50th anniversary of The Godfather, and I saw it on AMC Dolby Theater format, and it was amazing. They were showing it for the anniversary. Yeah, it's an awesome movie. It still holds up. There are those few movies in the 70s and whatnot that actually still can hold up. You can still put them on. For me, Godfather is definitely one of those movies. Godfather 2 is the same spot. I can go watch that movie kind of anytime, you know. If you haven't seen it, though, Godfather 2 is another one you got to check out. And Megan, I love Ridley Scott too, but he's another one of those guys. Sometimes not everything's a knock it out of the park, you know. It's one of those directors too that works so much, and you go, man, maybe if you just did like one movie a year or one every couple of years, you know. Matthias 23451 says best 3 signings we could do. Best 3 signings for me would be Teron Armstead, Ryan Jensen, and Jadeveon Clowney. How about that? Megan says, but then I wouldn't get to see Coach B online either, too, B. Maybe Nick. Yeah, you're going to have to go to Nick on this one, Megan. Sorry. It's just going to have to bite that Cage bullet or that Coppola bullet, because Nick Cage is actually, speaking of Godfather, he's a Coppola. Even saying that I got to see The Godfather in theaters is pretty freaking awesome. That is awesome. I'm glad they're rolling that in the theaters again. Marcus Overly, I say trade all our 2023 picks for 2022 draft picks. There's a very good reason for this. You could talk me into it, Marcus. You could talk me into it. I got to see what value we're getting this year, because, I mean, you can end up trading first, second, and only getting 1 first-round pick this year, you know. So you aren't getting the apples for apples value back necessarily. Megan says, one movie I would love to see in the cinema but never have is 2001. That would be a cool one. That would be a cool one. Yeah, that'd be a good one to see on the big screen, the way that thing was filmed. Can't go wrong with Kubrick. Alexander says Nick Cage makes 300 films a year minimum to avoid bankruptcy. Yeah, he's he's bought some items over the years. He didn't spend the money great. Charles Riley, the $5 donation. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate all your donations on the channel tonight. You're awesome, brother. Says, Brando, it's a pipe dream, but I'm all in on Clowney like yourself. Bring him back. Bring him back, man. The time has come. He was a good fit here before. He's an even better fit now with the hybridized nature of the defense you want to run. People get caught up on his sack numbers, Charles. I think you got to get caught up more on his ability to stop the run and his pressure rate, which both of those things throughout the course of his career have been basically outstanding anywhere he's gone. Certainly there's some injury question, but this is also why he doesn't cost everything that's going to pay or cost to go out there and get Chandler Jones or Von Miller. He comes at somewhere near half the cost of what they're going to cost, or 60% the rate they're going to cost with one less year of contract that you got to hand out to him. I think that it's a deal that makes a lot of sense. I know he has a good relationship with the defensive line coach here. Just to me, it makes a lot of sense, man. It makes a lot of sense. Marcus says, but you get 5 starters and all are 4-year rookie deals. You hopefully get starters. There's a bit of a bust rate involved with that, Marcus, too, right? Not all of them will probably be hits. 3 of them may be hits. But again, I've said, Marcus, over and over, I'm not adverse to sacrificing future draft capital or future salary cap space to improve this team in the here and now. That is the most important thing that they could implement here. Hoo-ha! If I was the man I was 10 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place. Oh, I hear you talking about cradle of up. What are you trying to do? You're trying to, what's that speech go? I forget how the speech goes. It was a seagoing snitches. Cradle of, well, when the bow breaks, the cradle will fall. And the cradle has fallen here today, gentlemen. Marcus says, agree. Otherwise, trade Russ. Yep, Marcus. And a little bit, this is a symptom of not going in on it over the last couple of years. So why you're kind of light right now from a talent standpoint. And yeah, this year's either about going for it now, all in, all systems go, lever down, pedal to the metal, whatever metaphor you want to pick. It's either that or it's rebuild. There should not be the middle ground where you're saying, well, we're going to kind of try. Because if you kind of try, you're going to kind of miss. It's kind of how that's going to go. I hope they do go a little harder with this, but with you, man. I can be talked into just about any sacrificing of any future space at this point because I think this season matters that much for the future of this ball club and the hopes we have going forward. Charles says, I think Pacino acts in movies like he's in the theater. I do too. Yeah, he always goes really big, which is weird, Charles, because he was so low key early on in his career. I mean, the subtle performances of Dog Day Afternoon and Godfather and Serpico, those weren't loud performances like the later stuff with Scent of a Woman and Heat and everything basically from 1990 onwards, I was even watching Carlito's Way, which, is a little bit loud to a degree, but even that wasn't too bad. It wasn't too much. He was still kind of sitting in the pocket on that one. Marcus, all in or trade Russ, this insane position Pete and John are planning, this BS is insane. We don't know yet, Marcus. I know they're saying it looks like they're going to sit a little bit in the middle of the road on this one, but we don't know for sure. They could be just telling us that. They wouldn't expect them to show their hand at this point in that side of things. But I agree. I hope that they don't sit back and remain in sort of a tacit stance where they just sort of, lukewarm their way through this offseason. A lot of one-year contracts, a lot of just sort of sitting in place like they have prior. Charles says Pacino was so understated in the first 2 Godfather movies. He was, and he was doing acting stuff. It wasn't like he just went low-key and going placid, and I'm just going to be very, tepid my approach. There was a change in his character from the first to the second, from sort of the wide-eyed, kind of coming to peace with the family first to where he's now the cold-blooded, calculating mob boss in the part 2. Both different performances, both awesome performances. He just went big. He made a choice at some point. I'm going big. I'm going to just have fun with it. I can't blame him. Probably funner to play it big than it is to just try to play it low-key, real to life. Alexander Matthews, I like Ridley Scott, but John Carpenter is my number 1 director. That's a good number 1 director, Alexander. Can't argue with it. John's a really good director. That's for sure. That is for sure. I don't know if I've got a number one. Marcus says I can only donate in PayPal in this country. That's all good, Marcus. I do have a PayPal donation thing that I have. Let's see if I've got it here. You can always go through this if you want. It's an alternative path that I've developed because I know that we have some people that aren't able to. And I have hit the bottom of the chat, so let's go ahead and get the last of our questions in today. We're going to run a little bit of a short one. We'll be back on Sunday, and then I'm going to be talking a little bit more about what we got going on here with the Combine at that point. So we'll have some more to talk about at that point, as well as I might on that day be unveiling my my off-season plan. I've been in the works of putting together my off-season plan. So Marcus, here's the link if you want to donate. This is just an alternative way. It's a PayPal link. Okay, let's see if I can do this again. There we go. Posted in the stream. It's posted. But getting the last questions, comments. Let's get the last stuff on in. And we will be back at this on Sunday for show. Megan says, I stabbed my thumb over 4 hours ago and still throbbing. Ow, Megan. Hopefully you didn't hit an artery. It's not doing the shh thing, right? It's not doing that. Washington Visquez, Pacino's Big Boy Caprice was even more over the top, and Dick Tracy is such a subtle franchise. Yeah, I think that was the movie Even Over Scent of a Woman where he started to go huge. And yeah, he played that one. He wasn't chewing the scenery. He was full on stuffing it down his throat. Seahawks Primo, thank you for the $5 donation. Seahawks Primo, appreciate you. Very kind of you. It says, Brando, that was awesome seeing Chad Brown on your channel. Why do these so-called Seahawks fans want to trade B-Wags? I don't know if it's as much trade. I think people are looking more for the moving on point. And first of all, thank you for checking out the Chad Brown deal, Seahawks Primo. I really love doing the interview. I'm going to try to do more of them in the future. I'm already reaching out to other Seahawks, including guys. Hit up Colby Parkinson on Twitter. I've reached out to him. I got a contact with him, so I might try to get him on here soon. But I love doing the interview. It was great, and Chad was amazing. Bobby Wagner, yes, people want him. I'm doing more ums now that somebody mentioned that. It's completely in my head now. Bobby Wagner is not looking for people to have him be moved because of the fact that he's a horrible player now. It's that he costs a huge amount of salary cap space. He's costing $20 million against our cap this next year. There's no middle linebacker in the sport that's, I think, even really coming near that. Levante David, a guy drafted right along near him, similar production throughout the course of his career, is making about half what Bobby's making. So people look at that and they go, we're kind of overpaying this guy. We're kind of paying for past performance, and we're not able to then build in other places on our team. You've got a quarterback making darn near $40 million, and then you have a linebacker making $20 million, $60 million of your cap, 35% to two players. You need to see the returns on that when you are going to invest that much. And unfortunately with Bobby, when you made him this highest paid linebacker in the sport by a huge amount in 2018, since then, the defense hasn't been all that good. Paying a middle linebacker in the way you paid him has not equaled out to the returns that you would hope to get by doing so. And this would be an adjustment on that to say we can't keep doing the same thing with this. We got to bring this down. I think above moving on, though, Seahawks Primo from Bobby, the thing that makes the most sense here, the thing that I would expect the team to do is to renegotiate, lower down his cap hit by about half, and call it a day. That would be what I would think. But he's lost a couple steps. He's not quite the player he once was. You're paying a huge amount of money for him. People want to just see an adjustment on that. Want to see the resources put in the right place. What's more important for this defense, a middle linebacker or our front four? Our front four is more important. Getting pass rush is more important. So we got to take half the money away from what we're paying to Bobby to get a better pass rusher. That is a better way to go. But I also understand the folks that want to just hold on to Bobby too. Again, an All-Pro this year. Again, I didn't think he was impactful from a standpoint of coverage or getting you a lot of tackle for losses, but he certainly ate up a lot of tackles. No doubt about that. Charles Riley with the $5 donation. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate you. It says, I hope for Megan Rogers' sake that Pete keeps looking in that mirror like MJ. No message could have been any clearer after this last 7-10 season. Thank you, Charles. You hit the nail on the head on that one. I hope he keeps staring in that mirror. Megan loved Dick Tracy. I did like Dick Tracy too. It's like a guilty pleasure. Impulse, who do you think the Seahawks are going to draft with their first pick? I'm going to go with Perry and Winfrey or Abraham Lucas. Impulse. There's my prediction for you. Perry and Winfrey or Abraham Lucas. Dan W., I hope we hear of DK's extension in the next month here. Me too, Daniel. I want to see it sooner than later here. Get it done. He's earned it. Pay that man. Keep him here. Stifle this talk of trading him. No. I don't even know if he could be traded right now because he had the foot surgery. I don't think he'd pass a physical in a trade. And I don't think any team's going to waive that part. So I don't even think he could be tradable at this point. But don't do it. Sign him. Keep him here. Keep it standing. Megan says, not bleed now, B, but am tapping the keys with my stabbed thumb, which is why it's throbbing, I guess. Well, that would do that. Got to switch fingers. Switch fingers. Daniel W., what position do you prefer we use our second round pick on? Say best player available is available on all positions. What do you want to see them locked down? That's a good question. I guess is your list based upon the players that are likely to be available there? Other than like me just going pie in the sky, I like this guy that's going to be a top 15 pick, but if he falls, I think offensive line in general is a position that I would gravitate towards having them pick with that first, second round pick. And if not that, then go get a pass rusher, either be a 3-tech or an edge rusher. You know, if it's not Abraham Lucas or Daniel Fa'alele, then give me Perry and Winfrey or maybe Boy Mafi, maybe. I'm still trying to make my peace with Mafi. I can't quite get fully on board with him, but maybe something like that. But offensive line pass rush would be my priorities with that first pick. Daniel Bay, there's no point to trade DK. He is so young and talented that we could sign him now and still trade him in 3 to 4 years for the same draft capital as today. Well said, Daniel. Still a very young player. No reason to do this right now. I agree. As well, we got so many problems and issues to deal with on this team. Do we want to offload one of the things that's not an issue or a problem? One of those nice things we have on our team. We have a Darrell Taylor. That's a good thing to have. You got a Damian Lewis. Nice thing to have. You have a DK Metcalf. That's a nice thing to have. We don't have a lot of a full stock of those type of assets. Let's not offload it. Let's not deplete further. Let's start to build, not deplete. Synquest Easter. How you doing, Synquest? Have you did your own Seahawks draft? I've not done a mock draft yet here, Synquest, but we will do a show around just doing the mock draft simulator, I'm sure, at one point and playing around with that a little bit. But we still got to get the combine to go through, and I still need to do all of my assessments on the top end draft prospects that are out there. Right here is, you can take a little screenshot if you want. I've got my draft board here up on the list. Here's the offensive guys that I've got posted so far. These are the people that I've looked at. So you can take a screenshot if you wanted that. Then I've also got my defensive side here. So this is the defensive big board on this side of things. So I'm rounding out the big board, which will eventually bleed over to a mock draft. But we've got to make sure I'm looking at enough of the top end guys so I'm not missing a guy who would have been maybe a better pick. I could be maybe somewhat accurate. Aaron Zhang, nice haircut. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it, man. I do appreciate it. All right, let's get these off the board here. All right, well, let's wrap it up. Last questions, last comments, trials, tribulations, whatever you guys may have. And then I'm going to go get some dinner here. Again, just a little bit of a quicker show today, but we'll be back on Sunday. Go a little bit longer on that one. Talk little bit more about the combine at that point. We're going to have some numbers to turn over on some of these guys. Some guys that will raise up on the board, some guys that will fall on the boards. Give us a little more talk about, might even hear some more extension talk here from our Seahawks here as we go a little bit more forward on this. So we'll keep our eyes on that with that. Aaron saying popcorn for dinner. I think I got myself a nice chocolate muffin from Costco. If you guys ever have the chocolate muffins from Costco, oh my God, they're amazing. And what you got to do is you got to put them in the microwave for like 25 seconds and it melts the chocolate chip. And it's, oh my gosh. It's like something, it's a little bit of heaven in muffin form. And I'm not a muffin guy, but they're killing it with those muffins. There might be pure cocaine in those muffins. I'm not saying there isn't, but there might be. Marcus Overley's got 6 picks in this order. Left tackle, center, nose tackle, edge, offensive guard, cornerback. I'd be mostly good with that. I might flip your edge and nose tackle. I think you can go get a nose tackle back with an Al Woods, or Brian Monet could probably slide to do some of that stuff if you had to. You really do need another edge rusher. I'd be okay with that. I mean, that's kind of where the value is with the Marcus in this draft. Aaron Zhang says Costco bakery so good. It is so good. It's delicious stuff. It's good. It's real good. They do, and most bakeries are crap too, but they do the 2-for-1. So you get it's like $7 and you get a dozen muffins. I'm probably like 10 pounds heavier off just a week eating them. It's amazeballs. Woo. All right. Well, we've got the combine starting here, folks. Our head coach, our general manager are saying all the right things, all the things that we want to hear as far as we're making changes. We're gonna stop doing the old things. It's the old Einstein quote. I think it's misapplied Einstein, but you do the same thing and fail, and you keep on doing that thing that is failing over and over. You don't change any ways. Change doesn't necessarily guarantee success, but it puts you on a better pathway of potential success versus staying in that same lane, hitting the same hammer to the same nail head, and not being able to drive it through that wood. Well, we seem to not be doing that anymore, at least in talk. Now, talk is cheap. We need to see action. We're going to need to see it in free agency. We're going to need to see it in mini camps and training camp when reporters are talking about the scheme differences and seeing them do so many different things that they've never done in the past. Because if they even implement half of this stuff, it's going to look tangibly different on the football field from day one, even in practice. So we'll know very quickly if all this stuff is BS talk or truly what they intend to do in the road that they intend to go. Charles Riley's finishing us off with a nice $5 donation to cap this off right. And why shouldn't he? Because he puts about 7-8 donations every stream, man. Thank you so much, Charles, for all you do on the channel and your support. You're awesome. He says, I want Pacino to do Olive Garden commercials. Is that too much to ask? Oh, well, let me tell you. You're like matzo balls. Whoa, hoo-ah. Who doesn't like matzo balls? You're going to eat your spaghetti. And you're going to like your spaghetti. And then you're going to put some Parmesan on your spaghetti. And then what are you going to do? You're going to have some bread on your spaghetti. Oh, hoo-ah. Give me some bread. Love it. Good. Then you're going to go and get some wine, because wine's good, on your bread. How are you going to go on your bread to your wine? I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know. The definition of insanity. That's right, Megan. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and again, expecting a different result. And they're not doing it. We can, at the very minimum, we can say our coaching staff is not doing that. Megan says, looking forward to the next few weeks. Bring it on. Go Hawks. Me too. Me too. It's going to be fun. Thank you, Charles. Hey, man, thank you for all your donations, brother. I really do appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and everything you do on this channel, man. Thank you so much, as well as being active in the chat as you are. Daniel W., looking forward to the next free agent draft coverage over the next 1 to 2 months here. Then hits the boring long off season until training camp. Yeah, Daniel, there is the doldrums. There's the dead period. It will approach, but we're not there yet. We're at the exciting period. We're in Measurement City today with the combine. We're going to get some drills. We'll get some 40 times. We're going to get guys vaulting up boards, guys dropping down boards. It's an exciting time. Then just comes free agency. So we're going to have a lot to turn over. And I'm going to be here the whole way. We'll be doing all 3 days of the draft. We'll be here on free agent day the free agency breaks. 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be going live on that day. So we got a jam-packed schedule here for the streams in this offseason, as well as, guys, reach out to former Seahawks players online about doing some interviews too. Keep doing that stuff. I see you guys on Twitter doing that. Hit these guys up. I would love to be able to do some more of those interviews like we did with Chad. I had an awesome experience with him, and just kind of just pushes it that much more forward to want to do it, continue to do it here as we go into the future. Please do hit this like button if you like what you're hearing either now or replay. Just hit that like button for me if you could. It does help the channel grow, helps everything just expand. And you guys have been doing a great job of that. So thank you for everything you've been doing on that up until this point. We will be back on Sunday. Alexander Matthews, you have a good night. Weston Corbin, you have a great night as well. We will be back on Sunday, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We're going to be talking a bit. We're going to be going really deep into the combine. I might start to unveil some. I might do like a girl like the burlesque girls do, where they show you a little skin, just a little bit. I might give you guys just a little skin of my off-season plan, just a little peek. Just a little peek. I'm not going to show you the full thing, okay? I'll give you a little boob. You're not getting nipple. You'll get boob. You will not get nipple, okay? I'll give you just a little peek, though, maybe on Sunday. So come on back on Sunday, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. We're going to live stream on that, talk about these prospects, talk about free agency, just sit in awe and wonder of the hopes of all the great changes that we're going to see in this offseason. Look, there's a lot of work to do, folks. We're just getting started here. It's up early in the morning this offseason. Okay, we just had our first cup of coffee. Haven't even had breakfast yet. We got to go fill the hogs and feed the horses and take the dogs on a walk. That's what these Seahawks are doing now this offseason. We're just in the beginnings, okay? And there's a lot to be done here, but it is accomplished. They can accomplish this. They can get this stuff done. It just takes the will to do it, like I say, and hopefully our front office has that will. They're saying all the right things. Now show us the action, right? Not just the words, show us now the action, front office, but kudos to you guys. I'm hard enough on Schneider and Carroll. Kudos to them for at least recognizing where things aren't going right, and change is absolutely needed at not just a fundamental level, but all the way through this organization, top to bottom, in so many respects. And they're seemingly putting it into place. It's great to see. Oh, all right, well, have a good night, you guys. I really do appreciate you. We're going to get to some exciting stuff, hopefully some re-signings here as well in the next week. Just don't forget for me now, because I know some of you out there are forgetting here. Don't you forget. I see you. I see you out there forgetting. I know you're doing it. I'm going to remind you to the end of time if I got to. I'm going to keep saying it till you stop forgetting.